Hello and welcome back to Lorehammer, the 40k podcast, where we've been talking about chaos demons and getting all types of extra voices going. We're not sure if it's been possession so far, but it's been happening, and we got a bunch more quotes this episode, so I can't wait to go down the path of possession. This time, we're going to invite Khorne into our podcasting hearts and lives. Hey, I'm Mark. Joining me today, we got Christian.
Hey, everybody. I'm here to share in everyone's favorite god, Khorne.
Which is Khorne.
Khorne.
Okay. Yeah, I've heard of him.
Spelt with a K.
Oh, yeah, okay, yeah. Now we're talking. I thought you were talking about corn, wheat, crops.
That's everyone's favorite food.
That's American.
And not because they like it, because they have to eat it, because it's in everything.
Stupid Americans. Yo, Jordan, we got Jordan with us as well.
Hey guys, I'm back and I got my good recording equipment finally again because I came back home. Some would call it Canada, others would call it the 51st state. It's like I really actually never left the United States. I basically am
barely
still
tell the difference.
Yeah, I'm basically in my own country still. So
it has been nice just watching you go from different house to different house, and I get a creep in the background. Like,
yeah. I finally have my good background and my good camera and my good mic. So
nice. I love that. And I'm rocking Starlink nowadays, and Christian still sucks. But hey, we won't let that get us down this time. No, sir, we won't. Let's
you're actually coming through really good.
Oh yeah. I've been noticing the difference. I used to have like 15 MPs or some shit, and now let's just say it's been like 5 times better. So let's just go with that number. People have been going like MPBs, what's your up, what's your down? I'm like, MBPS, I know 40K if you want to talk about that.
What do I look like? A podcaster? I don't know internet stuff.
Fucking nerd to you? Jeez. Speaking of fucking nerds, I'm looking for sound editors. If you want to edit episodes of Lorehammer for me, that'd be greatly appreciated. Basically, we just removed some awkward silences, some some truly horrendous jokes. So if you want to know the deep secrets of Lorehammer, sign up to become a sound editor, and you can edit the show. So we have a pretty good crew, but there's a high burnout rate. I demand a lot from my staff.
You will die.
Yeah. It's pretty much like I'm feeding 1,000 sound editors a year to this podcast.
Golden Throne.
Yeah. So if you want to be a part of that cool project, email me and we can get you involved in editing Lorehammer episodes, which, like I said, is very simple. I can teach anyone to do it. Honestly, it's just a time thing, and I don't have time to do it myself with writing episodes and recording. So shoot me a message on lorehammerpodcast@gmail.com. You can email me.
And if you also want to help support the show without a soul binding ritual, you can always join the Patreon and join the Imperial Tithe and offer yourself that way. That gets you an ad-free version of $2.50 a month, or you can get video versions and see all of our faces for $5. That is a price to see our faces.
Mm-hmm. And you pay us, not we pay you.
Yes.
Yeah, just for clarification.
That's not how this works.
I've been signing up, then demanding the $5, saying, okay, I've seen your stupid face now. Give me my money. Incorrect.
You're right. You're lucky because it's a lot cheaper to get to see us here than see us on OnlyFans for $80 a month. So
this is
pretty much a deal.
That's true. Is there a higher tier to sacrifice yourself to a chaos god or no?
I think if you want the deep tiers of cred, you go onto Listener Lore Patreon, you subscribe there, and then you get the truest deep powers unlocked that all the Patreon gods offer you. So
absolutely. And if you are a member of that Patreon, part of the Imperial Tithe, you also get access to the live chat room during the show. It's always a banging good time. Lots of people bring in their thoughts to the show, and as you'll hear throughout the episode, you'll hear us refer to comments and questions in the chat, so it's sort of an interactive experience. And we also do a call-in guest at the end of the episode. And that's always fun. And of course, if you jump on the live stream, you can always join me for some Whiskey and Warhammer, and today I'm back in my own liquor cabinet to be a filthy
Living in it.
drunk.
He's been living in it for a week.
Yeah, no more cheap American beer. So now we got some. Today we got some JP Wisers, aged 14 years. Okay, let's get on it.
I think Grim might be joining you for that because he's
Ooh.
back to whiskey and Warhammer. So.
You know, it would have been thematic, Jordan, if you were drinking like a red wine or like a sangria or something.
Yeah,
I guess for tonight.
Or a Bloody Mary, or Bloody Caesar, or what is that called? A Caesar.
Just a Caesar, yeah.
That's true.
Drop the ball. I'm disappointed.
I have had people message the show asking, you know, hey, you guys have done High Hammer. Would you guys ever do Drunk Hammer? I'm not much of a drinker, but I'll do anything for Lore Hammer, you know. Yeah, does not take much. I'm very, very flexible, as some people on the OnlyFans have found out. But Jordan, would you get into a Drunk Hammer with me?
Yeah, I could. I mean, I don't like giving myself too hard of a hangover, but yeah, I can get a little tipsy for you if you need.
A little more than the standard.
Yeah.
And I won't even ask Christian because he's a father of 4 and has to be a good example, which I admire. And one day, when I have 4 kids, not just one, I might be that man myself.
One day. We can only hope.
But it is not this day.
Not safe for me to get drunk either. I usually get pretty violent.
Yeah, okay. This is true. Okay. Okay, that's a good segue to Khorne, the blood god. We're talking Khorne this episode, and crazy you can go 157 episodes and not talk about one of the coolest parts of all of 40k, and that's the blood god himself. It's probably one of the things that is spread out into not just 40k, but like the beyond 40k. Like I've heard people say blood for the blood god, skulls for the skull throne. I'm like, oh, you play 40k? And they're like,
no.
but like that's started to bleed into like the, what do you call that? The atmosphere, the meta of it all.
The zeitgeist.
It's like a meme.
Yeah. So yeah, we're talking about Khorne. It's going to be a fun episode. My favorite part is when we get to the philosophy portion. There's kind of 3 aspects to it that I can't wait to talk about. But we'll save that for that portion.
Khorne is known to be a deep thinker.
Yeah, very deep thoughts. This episode, we're also going to be talking about the blood god's domain, from the blood pits to the rivers of blood to lake slaughter to lots of blood. Yeah, Jordan, do not take a shot every time you hear the word blood. Do not do it.
You will die.
Alcohol poisoning.
Yeah. We will talk about the rivalry, which is pretty cool. And what I've kind of been thinking about on the last few episodes is like, if there's a rival, is there a preferred? If there's a positive, is there a negative god as well? You know, like kind of what balances it all out. So those have been fun to kind of discuss. And then we will get into the Khorne demons, from demon princes to lesser demons to fucking demon engines. And we're going to kind of summarize those guys. The last 2 episodes we've done, we didn't really get to do a whole lot on them because there's just so much on the gods to cover, and we go down such fun little rabbit holes. So I've been thinking those will probably get their own episodes one day. So, you know, the single god episode eventually turns into one for the gods, one for their fucking demons, and one for their mortal servants. But we'll talk more about that at the end of the episode. So, yeah, it's going to be fun. Let's dive into all that the blood god has to offer.
All right. Khorne, the blood god. The Lord of Skulls, the Hunter of Souls, the War Unending. It is the storm of battle made manifest, the unquenchable fury that drives warriors to the brink of madness and beyond. Khorne is war without mercy, rage without restraint, and eternal slaughterer whose thirst for carnage can never be sated. To whisper its name is to summon visions of endless battlefields drenched in crimson, skulls piled high in ceaseless tribute. Every act of bloodshed, every murder, every blade thrust into flesh feeds the blood god, strengthens its dominion over the materium. But not all death is equal. The most worthy sacrifices are those bathed in the fury of war, the thunderous clash of armies, the raw test of strength, where one warrior crushes another beneath their heel. Senseless slaughter serves Khorne well, But honorable combat, victory, earned through sheer power, is the purest tribute of all. Khorne's chosen do not revel in the delicate agonies of their victims. That filth is for Slaanesh, the weakling god of indulgence. A true devotee of Khorne kills not for pleasure, but for conquest, for supremacy, for the sheer, unrelenting drive to prove themselves the strongest. Blood must flow, but suffering is irrelevant. The name Khorne is but the crude approximation of its true title in the demonic dark tongue, Karneth, the Lord of Rage, the Master of Blood. It is the oldest and mightiest of the Chaos Gods, rising to power upon the tide of slaughter that swept across Terra during the early second millennium. As war consumed the world, as cities burned and empires drowned in blood, Khorne's first roars of triumph shook the Immaterium itself. It is the destroyer of civilizations, the executioner of worlds, the end of all things. The blood god has no need for honeyed words or deception. Its truth is written in battle. Its law is spoken through the screams of the dying. Khorne does not bargain. Khorne does not conspire. Khorne does not break. It seeks only one thing, the endless eternal war where all life is crushed beneath an unstoppable tide of slaughter. Blood for the blood god, skulls for the skull throne.
Fucking cool. Yeah, man. This is just the god of war. So many cultures have this. Like, it just is such a natural part, such a natural order of the universe where violence is gonna happen, man. And every time there's that violence, there's that negative emotion in the warp that is consolidated into Khorne, the rage manifest god. One thing I included in this bit when writing it, and I'll get flack for it, but I don't fucking care, is I like that the gods Nurgle and Khorne were birthed in the second millennia during old Terra's.
This is how you want to start
dark
already,
ages.
eh?
This is how I choose to start a show.
Fine.
Yeah. I love it, man. I fucking love
He's
it.
the
I
god
think
of war.
exactly. And
So
it's
we might
not
as
that
well fight.
Earth was like super warlike then. Yeah, sure. There's definitely lots of war, definitely lots of pestilence. But I think it was just like, that's not when it was birthed. That was just, or manifested. That was just when it was birthed. Like, it was manifesting slowly over millions of years of war throughout the galaxy. And then this was just that tipping point of that last couple percentage point to get full life on Khorne.
I disagree to an extent, but I will tolerate your explanation being that if it's that little bit that kind of pushes it over the edge. Certainly, like I said, you have everything like the war in heaven. You have like these big, colossal like wars and other species all killing each other, and even humans like killing each other since before. Like, whereabouts is the second millennium in human terms? Like, I mean, real history terms. Where does that put us? Like, what war is it that pushes us over the edge here?
Like the Dark Ages is typically when they say.
So, like, it depends when in the Dark Ages, but like Genghis Khan, who is credited as one of Khorne's first demon princes, actually in the show or in the lore, killed like an incredible amount of people. Like, especially considering the technology he was using to do it. Like, it is apocalyptic. So if you're including someone, like if they're including him, but I don't understand how he could be a champion of Khorne if Khorne hadn't been born yet, right? So like Khorne would have had to predate him. So like you had lots of violence in human history before the medieval era. And yeah, the medieval era was violent, but I also think that's a modern misunderstanding of that era too. It wasn't as violent as people assume it to be. Conflict was like a lot on a smaller scale because people could raise only smaller armies and things.
Yeah, and when you read a history book, you suffer from over the course of 100 years, you could read about 5 big battles, where lots of people died, but that's over the course of 100 years. It just seems like it happens all stacked up really close.
Yeah, when it's all condensed like that. Yeah.
Now, my other factor for why I really like this kind of theory, and I've always liked it, like it used to be true that they were born in the second millennia, way back in the day in older editions. But the other reason why I like it is the more I read about Lorehammer and Warp and the gods and all that, I just think that humans have something special that no other race has. And, we've talked about like how if you're eating meals, if the dark gods are eating different meals, how humans are going to be a meat and potato meal. It's just hearty. Where if you eat an Eldar, it's going to be a dessert. If you eat Tau, you might as well just be eating a leathery boot. I just think, okay, so yeah, sure, maybe they didn't contribute fully to birthing and causing Khorne during that time, but they're that little bit, and just that special connection that we have as humans was enough to go over the edge.
It would be hard to imagine, though, only simply because of the human population at the time was even insignificant to what it is right now, much less in the 41st millennium when we're talking, I don't know, what is it, trillions? Isn't it just like the volume of population affects the warp less? If that question makes sense.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. Like, okay, so I'll propose a different question first. Like, so Khan killed a bunch of people, like Christian said, like a huge percentage of the population. So I wonder if an act of killing like 99% of your society and your civilization, not that Khan did that much, but if that percentage makes a difference, or if like
just the numerical number, the actual number.
Yeah, exactly. It's the warp, so it could be either ways. And like, what does the psychic backlash of killing almost your entire race do in the warp? Like, that probably is more of an impact than, it killed 1 million people, but we have a population of 10 trillion, so who cares?
Yeah, like there's Pol Pot, who's often overlooked as one of the great dictators of the 20th century.
Great.
In terms of like he killed far less than Mao or Stalin or Hitler, but he in terms of proportionality, he killed like 1/3 of his own people, which is way more than Mao or Stalin ever did, right? Like the amount of devastation in Cambodia was, it's actually hard for us to even imagine causing that kind of mayhem in your own country. And you kind of feel that a little bit, emotionally on a, dare I say, psychic level.
Yeah, like places hold like some type of emotional resonance sometimes, where you walk into a place and you get vibes and shit, and who knows what that is. Maybe it is Khorne feasting on fucking emotions. Who fucking knows? But that's neither here or there. Ultimately, as soon as Khorne was born, he extends across all time, and he's always been born. He always was there. So it's kind of an irrelevant point anyways, but I still fucking like it.
I will say a couple of things. One, they often say that the first profession was prostitution, which is Slaanesh.
I think it's the oldest profession.
Oldest profession, yeah, sorry. Yeah. Hard disagree. Like 100% people were killing each other before they were exchanging sexual services for money. 110%. So I think warfare was the first profession.
Why pay when you can get the cow for free?
Some people would argue that sex is always a transaction from a purely evolutionary.
Those people are wrong.
We don't need to hear what your wife thinks, Jordan. Come on, keep her out of this.
The other thing I will say is, like, if you're incorporating like all of the second millennium, that would put a pretty large era to draw wars from, which includes the bloodiest eras of history. That includes like World War I, World War II. Like, we actually went through the bloodiest, just in sheer body count, the bloodiest era in human history.
The last century of the last millennium.
Yeah. So like in those terms, like if you include that, and really the second millennium counts as the end of the medieval era. So yeah, I would 100% agree, because you have like all the Napoleonic Wars, you have all the conquests that had happened during like the colonial period, and then leading into World War I, World War II. So it was the bloodiest era, certainly, and that would obviously birth a war god. But if you're counting like the medieval period, it's to me, it's just like a misconception of how violent it actually was relative to other eras of human history. You had the Roman conquests, you had Alexander the Great, you had like a lot of.
And don't even get me started on the Bronze Age.
Collapse. But anyways, You made your point. I will tolerate it, which is not very Khorne like, but
Yeah.
I'll allow
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, on that note, let's get into the creed of Khorne, which is war, and his only law is blood. The battlefield is its temple, the slain its offering, the endless slaughter its only commandment. Where blades clash and warriors fall, Khorne reigns supreme. From the blood-drenched sands of feral dueling pits to the fire-blasted ruins of entire planetary war zones, every war fought is a hymn to the blood god. Khorne cares not from whence the blood flows, only that it flows. Friend, foe, brother, father, comrade, all are equal in death. The warrior who slaughters his own proves his absolute devotion. His understanding that there is no bond, no loyalty, no kinship greater than war itself. To take life is to give tribute. To let a day pass without killing is to invite Khorne's scorn. Yet for all its hunger, Khorne does not waste its wrath on the feeble. The weak do not deserve the blade. They are beneath notice, unworthy of the skull throne. True glory is found in warriors breaking warriors, champions pitting strength against strength, the defiant being crushed beneath the unstoppable. It is martial honor soaked in crimson, the forge of battle testing the mettle of the mighty. Blood for the blood god, skulls for the skull throne. This is the sacred cry of Khorne's disciples, screamed into the fire of war as they carve a path of ruin through flesh and bone. In the frenzied carnage, they bellow the call. Kill, maim, burn. And when the battle rages thick, when blood splatters, their armor and bodies pile high, the berzerkers of Khorne, Khorne's chosen, roar their final decree. Break their backs. There is no greater foe to a warrior of Khorne than those who deny the purity of battle. The wretched disciples of Slaanesh, degenerate filth, who kill for pleasure instead of conquest, are despised above all. And the scheming cowards of Tzeentch, who whisper in shadows and weave their sorcery instead of facing death with steel in hand, are considered weaklings unworthy of combat. Strength is truth. Slaughter is devotion. The strong stand, the weak are torn apart, and Khorne's name echoes in every dying breath. The war never ends. The blood never stops flowing. The skull throne rises ever higher.
Oh man. Of all the fucking factions, man, like I was saying, they have the most iconic quotes that you can yell. Yeah, it's fun yelling WOG every now and again, but you also sound like a retarded person. Yeah, break their backs. Like I just picture Bane breaking Batman's back in like this savage act, kill, maim, burn. You just, all the quotes are so classic for sure.
Yeah, he's like the just pure berserker. Like, I don't know if you play like MMOs, he's like the tank, right? that's his whole role.
You also can see a little bit of Khorne's good values poking through here. Very, very, very petitely here.
Good.
Yeah, good values. He shows mercy to the weak oftentimes. Like he's not out there wanting to just go kill mindlessly. Like, yes, but also like he would prefer you go out and find an admirable enemy and you kill him and you bring back that skull. Yeah, you can bring back 1,000 lesser skulls, but that's not necessarily the goal, and that's not necessarily what's going to please Khorne the most. There's a little bit of that martial honor in there too. And you don't kill an unarmed person in the same way. It's not the same glory.
Yeah, it's more like incidental killing. It's not, there's nothing in it really. It's not the blood isn't as rich as if you slay the enemy's champion in single combat.
But having said that, Khorne doesn't care where the blood flows. So
yeah, as long it's like it's like you said, it's like a little soul and a bright soul. It's like it's a Khorne blessing a little bit. He doesn't really care if you're slaughtering women and children. He wants you to like go find the biggest, meanest guy That's where the real like blessings of the Khorne come from. I was gonna say something on that line, but I forgot. Carry on.
All right. We'll carry on with learning about the Lord of Skulls. Khorne, the blood god, the Lord of Skulls, the bringer of war. His name is roared across the battlefields of eternity, carried on the screams of the slain. His wrath is endless, his thirst unquenchable, his dominion built upon mountains of skulls and oceans of blood. The first blow struck in anger, the first blade driven into flesh, the first war cry bellowed in defiance. Each was an echo of his will. He is not merely a god of war, he is war incarnate. Schollards and cowards waste breath debating his origins. Oh, shit. Okay. But it is only one truth. Khorne was, is, and always shall be. Or he always is, was, and shall be. Some claim he willed the first warrior to pick up the stone and cave in the skull of his kin. Others whispered that the first surge of unchecked fury gave him life. It does not matter. The warriors who walk this path do not speak of such things. They are too busy spilling blood, breaking bodies, and feeding their god with slaughter. Conflict is the only constant. It is the fire. It is the fire in the belly of warriors, the fuel of empires, the forge of the strong. Hatred, ambition, hunger, vengeance, every impulse that drives one to dominate another serves Khorne. There is no peace, no respite. Even the feeble fools who claim enlightenment survive only because their ancestors crushed their rivals beneath iron-shod boots. The universe is war. Those who deny it are liars or weaklings, destined to be trampled underfoot. Man, I'm fucking taking this episode personal. I'm feeling attacked a lot of the time here. I'm like this peaceful island vibe boy. Like, let's drink some coconuts, man. And not a fan. Khorne would not like me. There is no mercy, no compromise. The strong rise, the weak perish. This is the law of existence. Just as Chaos Space Marines crushes a grot's frail body with his gauntleted fists, so do civilizations fall beneath the might of those willing to seize power with blood-stained hands. Khorne does not care for excuses or hesitation, only battle, only carnage, only the brutal, unrelenting cycle of destruction that feeds his endless hunger. Blood for the blood god! Skull for the skull's throne! Oh, I fucked it up. My guy had a lisp.
Man, are we gonna have to make that phrase every time we end a section? Is that the
Until you do it right. And the only right way to do it is to kill one of the other lore hosts and provide the skulls too.
Offer up their skulls.
Yeah.
I remember what I was gonna say about that honorable killing thing. It's almost like the Predator. The Predator is like this unstoppable, for the Predator franchise. Just this unstoppable killing machine, but he hunts targets that he thinks of as a challenge, right? Like there's people who have like cancer, who are sick, who might be pregnant. That's not like, they typically just leave you alone at that point. Granted, again, a Khorne berserker probably not going to leave you alone, but they're not actively hunting a weak target. They're hunting the best kills on the battlefield.
Yeah, like if you pull up to a demon ritual to summon a great bloodthirster demon, and you sacrifice just some like 70-year-old hag, as opposed to like,
hey, don't talk about my mom like that.
As opposed to like loyalist space marine, like very big difference in value there. So
yeah, absolutely. Khorne, the ever-slaughtering, the brass tyrant, the war-given form. He is not a god of subtlety, nor a whisperer in the dark. He is wrath incarnate, fury given flesh, the master of slaughter whose very presence radiates ceaseless rage. Khorne does not scheme, he conquers. He does not deceive, he dominates. His form is a monstrous colossus of muscle and destruction, towering hundreds of feet high, a mountain of sinew and iron wrapped in the armor of war. His every movement is a storm of brutality, his every word a thunderous growl of unending hatred. His visage is a snarling beast's, a monstrous lupine horror barely concealing beneath an immense helm of blackened brass. The helm encrusted with the skulls of kings and warlords, is a tribute to the uncountable conquerors who have drowned worlds in blood in his name. He is often called he, though gender is meaningless to him as mercy. He is war, and war is no need for such feeble distinctions. A god of warriors, clad in the armor of endless battle, his frame is wrapped in plates of blood-stained iron and hell-forged brass, each layer scarred by blows that would sunder mountains. He broods atop his skull throne, an iron seat resting upon his ever-growing mountain of bone, fleshless trophies wrenched from the broken corpses of champions and cowards alike. It is a monument of destruction, a testament to war eternal. The skulls that pile his feet number beyond counting, from the shattered remnants of human conquerors to tyrannid craniums the size of hive city spires. Each is a story of victory, each is a tribute to his endless, insatiable hunger. At his side lies a blade whose legend has drowned entire civilizations in terror. A great two-handed sword, a weapon of such unfathomable might that its very names are omens of apocalypse. The woeful tongues of the doomed have called it Woebringer, Warmaker, the end of all things. When Khorne grips its hilt, the universe itself recoils. With a single sweep, it can cleave through reality, sundering the veil between worlds, unleashing his blood legions upon the materium. And when Khorne rises, when his laughter rolls like the drumbeat of extinction, war follows in his wake. An unstoppable tide of death. There is no peace, there is no respite. There's only the slaughter, the fury, the blood that forever flows. Blood for the blood god, skulls for the skull throne.
Jordan drinks to that. No, Jordan, I told you, don't drink to that. Oh man, I love that sword. It sounds so kind of funny and so almost like anime. A sword that can cut a planet in half. Wow, that's the mightiest katana of them all.
Sure, but if the sword is like 20 miles long,
yeah,
or bigger, much bigger,
and like it, it rips a hole in reality. This sword, it literally rips open the universe, and then demons pour through. Such a cool sword, yeah. Just to kind of, picture Khorne sitting on his throne. He gets up when he's really pissed off and just swings his sword in a direction, opening warp rifts and dooming planets to demon death.
Yeah, it's a pretty cool picture to visualize. None of the other gods really have an item like that, do they?
Like Nurgle has his cauldron, and that,
I guess, yeah,
that can kind of be comparable. Yeah,
but they're the only two.
Slaanesh has his. We can't say that.
Don't say it.
Lord Hammer Legal said don't.
We all know what it is, though. And it's got spikes and is just the same size as the Woolbringer.
Oh, man. One interesting about Khorne, though, is he kind of, he doesn't leave much. Like, he kind of sits on his throne and he stands up, and that's pretty much it. He laughs at you. But he's pretty stationary nowadays. He's pretty...
he's an old man.
Yeah.
He's got to sit for a bit.
Yeah.
He kind of makes me think of Crom from Conan the Barbarian.
Sure.
Crom is a lot less caring. Like, he just doesn't care. The whole thing is that he makes you strong to be able to live your life, but that's as far as he's willing to help you. But he still has this whole picture of him just sitting on a throne, kind of just watching as things happen to people.
Neat.
Terrible, awful things happen to people.
All right, shall we get into the titles of Khorne? Khorne, the blood god, is known by many fearsome titles, each reflecting his insatiable hunger for slaughter and war. As the Lord of Skulls and Taker of Skulls, he demands endless tribute from the battlefield, his throne built atop the remains of the slain. The Lord of Blood and Lord of Rage, he embodies unbridled fury, driving his followers into relentless carnage. As Karnath in the Dark Tongue, he is a name whispered with dread by those who fear his wrath. The Hunter of Souls, he claims the essence of warriors who fall in battle, as the Lord of Battle, he watches over every war waged in his name. known also as the master of the brazen throne and lord of gore. Khorne's domain is one of ceaseless conflict, where only the strongest survive and only bloodshed earns his favor. Now, did Khorne give himself these names? I feel like it's a little bit of an exercise in vanity here.
He's also, little known fact, he's also the most vain god.
Not
Yeah.
true. You know, he actually has the least amount of titles of all the gods.
Oh, really?
Yes, he does.
Okay. So he's actually the
so-
most humble chaos god.
He is the most humble of them, yeah.
Okay.
Now, to be fair, too, he's also not the most creative of them because, you know, is the blood god and the lord of gore really that different? Do you need both those titles?
Yeah, it's true.
I'm the lord of skulls and the taker of skulls. Yeah, we get it, bud. We'll talk about his domains and kind of what powers him. Khorne's domain is one of endless war, where hate, rage, and bloodshed reign supreme. He is the god of warfare in the purest, most brutal form, where strength and courage are tested through slaughter, and the only strong survive. His essence is found in every act of violence, from the disciplined clash of armies to the reckless, indiscriminate murder of the weak. Hatred fuels his realm, and wrath drives his followers into an eternal frenzy of destruction. Though he despises sorcery and trickery, he values martial honor and raw strength, rewarding those who prove their might in battle. Blood flows endlessly in his name, for every kill, every war, and every act of slaughter is an offering to the Lord of Rage. This god it's pretty straightforward, man. Like I said, good thing we're not doing any drinking games, because you would die quick every time we mention go kill somebody, do a violent act. Yeah, it'd be bad.
Yeah, I dare say it, but I almost feel he's a little one-dimensional. Maybe even a little boring, and just how
Boring, Jordan.
yeah, I mean, maybe I'll get into this near the end, but I don't know if I'm like the biggest fan just in terms of the one-dimensionality of it. That might apply to all the four major chaos gods, but I feel like it applies even more so to Khorne. At least with like the other chaos gods, you can play around with the story a little bit. But yeah, I don't know. Fight me.
How very Khorne of you to say. Yes, I will.
Khorne is as deep as a puddle and as vast as the ocean of blood.
Yeah.
All right. Let's look at his manifestation. Khorne, the blood god, the lord of war and slaughter. A towering titan, a behemoth of muscle and fury, Khorne is the embodiment of carnage. He stands hundreds of feet tall, his frame a grotesque monolith of destruction. His face is a snarling visage of a savage beast, a dog of war, the teeth bared in eternal hunger. His baroque helm, adorned with the skulls of the fallen conquerors, hides a monstrous visage, but none can mistake his presence. Khorne is wrath incarnate, a god of endless fury and commands the blood to flow in torrents. His physique is a nightmare, swollen with rage and twisted beyond mortal recognition. He is swole, isn't he?
So swole.
How
The
much,
chat's pissed at Jordan right now. They're coming for you. They don't like it.
Yes, let their rage fuel Khorne.
Yes. Meet Grimaldus out by the bike racks at 3:00. How dare you talk shit about Khorne? Khorne, boring. He's gonna send his dogs after you with honor, of course, says Jax. And then something about don't drink whiskey and blood. It's not beneficial. So
His body is encased in thick plates of brass and blackened iron, forged in the fires of battle and drenched in the blood of countless victims. Each word from Khorne's throat is a growl, a promise of violent death, and the very sound of it is a hammer, an echo of annihilation. His roars of bloodlust ripple across the realms of chaos, summoning the slaughter. Khorne sits upon his skull throne, an infernal seat carved from blackened brass, towering above a mountain of skulls. The skulls are the trophies of his endless wars. Fleshless heads of fallen champions, slain enemies, and broken foes, their hollow eyes staring into eternity. The pile grows endlessly, a monument to death and destruction, filled with the skulls of hundreds of thousands of species. From the lowliest human head to the gargantuan skulls of monstrous tyrannids, the size of Hive City blocks, every skull feeds Khorne's insatiable hunger, yet none ever sate it. Blood will always be spilled, more death will always be claimed. In Khorne's grasp rests the legendary sword. Yeah. Feel like we kind of covered all that already.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we'll move on to the next little part there.
All right, so Khorne's throne of skulls, a monument to murder. At the heart of Khorne's domain stands his mighty throne, forged from brass and blood, towering above a sea of carnage and slaughter. It rests atop a mountain of skulls, a grotesque testament to the thousands, no, millions of lives obliterated in the name of the blood god. These skulls, fleshless, hollowed eyes staring into eternity, belong to Khorne's victims, his followers and his champions alike. Each skull, each shattered bone feeds the blood god's insatiable hunger. The mountain grows even higher, built on the corpses of the fallen, and the sea of blood never ceases to swell, eternally nourished by death. Khorne's champions march to battle, leaving naught but slaughter in their wake, and each kill is another tribute to the blood god. The blood spilled is not just a sacrifice, it is a blessing. For Khorne cares not who falls, only that the blood flows. Whether ally or enemy, friend or foe, the blood god is fed by death without distinction. By the foot of the throne lies a great forge, where weapons and armor are forged in fires of war by Khorne's followers, both mortal and demonic. The fires of creation burn hot, crafting tools of destruction to carry out the endless wars of annihilation. Each weapon, each blade, each skull-crushing hammer is an instrument of death forged for one purpose: to kill, maim, and destroy. Khorne, the chaos god of unbridled rage and violence, is the very embodiment of mindless brutality. He is the wild bloodlust, the storm that cannot be stopped, the fury that slaughters anything in its path. His desire to destroy is a relentless hunger, a desire to rip apart every living being. And it is only through battle that this lust is satisfied. Khorne's appearance is a terrifying force, a destruction, a tower armored titan covered in plates of strange alien designs, each one carved with the repeating motif of skulls, a mark of death, a herald of doom. His winged helm covers a face twisted into a bestial, gnarling visage, a mouth perpetually dripping with blood, a symbol of the endless thirst for violence. In his hands, he wields a rune-etched sword or axe, instruments of devastation that cleave through all that stands in his way. In more primitive depictions, Khorne is shown with claws, fists of fury, ready to tear and rend flesh with raw, brutal force. The true followers of Khorne are few, but their numbers are ever dedicated to the will of their god. They march, fight, and kill with unrelenting zeal, for they know that every death, every sacrifice only strengthens the blood god. And in the end, when the blood flows freely, when the battle is won, it is Khorne's laughter that echoes over the carnage.
Just a couple more very subtle distinctions of how different blood flows please Khorne. You know, it all makes him happy, like we said, but there's a couple different ways that he likes it. Like, what is it to be a true follower of Khorne that there are so few of them?
They keep killing each other.
Maybe that's it. Yeah. Like, is it like lots of people will do violence act, but like only the true followers do it in the name of Khorne? And then, you know, are you doing it in the name of Khorne? Or are you just trying to get power from Khorne? You know, what do you think it's that hard to be a true follower of Khorne? It's not like Malice.
Yeah, and I was gonna add, like, getting lost in the bloodlust still doesn't quite do it either, right? And I think that would be very easy to fall into. like when you're, it's no longer even like the intentionality. You're just like killing for the sake of killing.
Yeah, because I guess like part of the reason why Khorne likes the killing is like what it brings. It's the conquest of it. It's like the pride. It's the accomplishment or whatever. So if you're just doing it mindlessly, you lose some of that like that extra gusto, you know. And if pride is emotion too, that Khorne would be feeding off of. Yeah, I guess he'd want you to do it kind of that way.
Yeah. Again, right? Like when you go in and like you start slaughtering like families, like sure, that's fine for Khorne follower, but you're kind of losing the point there, my guy. You know, not truly, you know, following Khorne's will.
Yeah. Yeah, like every time you get into a fight with like a big burly opponent, you're like, yeah, I'll sit this one out. And then every time there's just like a village of innocents, you go slaughter them. Like Khorne's not gonna like you.
Well, it's not that he doesn't like you. It's just not as good, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
There's a difference.
No, that is very true.
Yeah. It's not like don't do that. It's just like that's not as good as if you actually seek out a worthy opponent.
Yeah.
So
we'll get into Khorne's sacred number. Khorne's sacred his sacred mark. Khorne's sacred mark is a symbol of his savage and unyielding power, a mark that strikes fear into the hearts of those who encounter it. Often a jagged, bloody ruin or the image of a skull surrounded by flames, this symbol represents the eternal dominance of war, bloodshed, and violence. Those marked by the Khorne are forever bound to his will, their flesh branded by the blood god's fiery wrath. The mark is a badge of honor for his followers, signifying their devotion to the relentless cycle of battle and death. To bear the mark is to embrace unrelenting rage, to walk the path of slaughter with no mercy, no retreat, for Khorne's demands only victory and the spilling of blood in his name. I've seen a lot of people with the Khorne tattoo who are not living up to it. So step up your game. Yeah. If you don't want to kill a person, I get it. You don't want to go to jail. Just start with some puppies. Start small. But you got to get that body count up if you got the Khorne tattoo.
This is why we need those sound editors. Yeah. Yeah, the symbol of Khorne. To me, it like vaguely, I think, looks like a skull. Like the two eyes, like the nose, and then like a very primitive kind of design of a skull is what I think it kind of is reminiscent of.
Cool.
I don't know. What do you see in the Khorne symbol?
No, I never seen
salvation.
That before, but now that salvation. I never seen that before, but now that you've said it 100% bang on it.
Yeah.
It's a skull kind of very it's a skull drawn by somebody who doesn't care about drawing.
Yeah. Someone who kills more about killing.
Yeah.
Yeah. In a war that can't be mentioned, there is a unit that uses that symbol too, and they call themselves the Khorne unit as well. So they are out there.
They exist.
All right. Sacred number 8. Khorne's sacred number is 8, a symbol of endless repetition and the unyielding cycle of violence and war. The number holds great significance in Khorne's domain, representing both the eternal nature of conflict and the constant march of bloodshed. The 8-pointed star, often seen on the manifestations of Khorne's power, embodies his insatiable hunger for war, with each point signifying a different aspect of his domain: rage, strength, brutality, and the cycle of death. Followers who hold the number 8 in their hearts and actions believe that every battle is but another in an infinite line of wars, where Khorne's thirst for blood and destruction can never truly be quenched. To worship him through his sacred number is to surrender oneself to the relentless, cyclical nature of violence that defines the blood god's realm. Yeah. So everything you'll notice with Khorne is like in 8s, kind of like all the other sacred numbers for the Chaos Gods. Their units tend to be in 8s. They have the 8 bound with 8 demons.
Yeah,
everything
the
8th
wave is always the most powerful wave of demons. Yeah.
Yeah.
I did notice there when writing these notes too that he has 8 points on his icon or whatever, and each one represents a different aspect, and then they name a couple, and they name 4. I think, yeah, that's Khorne. It doesn't care if that
Doesn't know how to
it's
count.
only 4. Doesn't know how to count. That's fine.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna bring it up to him.
4 is half of 8, though. So
My lord, you forgot a couple.
forgot 4.
Yeah, wasn't gonna be me.
Yeah, good call. Good call.
All right, so the sacred color, and before I even read this, let me guess. It is green? No, just kidding. It's obviously red. Khorne's sacred colors are red and brass, representing the unyielding fury and brutal might of the blood god. Red, the color of blood, embodies his unrelenting thirst for slaughter, symbolizing the violence and carnage that flow through his domain. It is the color of rage in the battlefield, marking those who fight in his name with the stain of their conquests. Brass, the second sacred color, reflects the cold, unyielding strength of Khorne's warriors and their weapons, forged in the heat of battle. It is the color of martial honor and enduring power, often seen in the armor and banners of Khorne's most dedicated followers. Together, these colors form the very essence of Khorne's brutal empire, a realm where blood is spilled without end and strength is tested in the furnace of war.
Cool. I think I asked you this, Christian, on the Tzeentch episode we did. We were talking about sacred colors and just how, we understand you need to have units of 8. 8 is the number. But then when it comes to color, not everyone paints their demons the specific color. How does that make you feel?
Like if someone did
Seems
blood
wrong.
letters in a different color.
It seems wrong, Jordan says. Interesting. You're the first person besides me who said that.
Oh, really? Yeah, like if they actually have a sacred color, why would you paint them anything else?
Because some of us are creative, Jordan. Some of us
No.
are deeper than Khorne.
Yeah. I don't hold true to this as much as I do. Like, this isn't my biggest pet peeve, but it is a huge pet peeve of mine. Like, it's almost Primaris level, We'll put a couple points down. Like, I think the sacred color matters, man. Just like when you put down the 8, you have to be painting your models red. It's like painting ultramarines, man. Like, this is a specific thing that we're up to here. We're not just painting any old demons. Like, we're painting specific things.
Yeah, you can also there's different shades of red that you can play around with.
Have you heard of burgundy?
Yeah.
A deep maroon.
Yeah. But yeah, I wouldn't take too many liberties if I'm gonna make a unit that is specifically for this god. I would be going in that direction.
Yeah. And now, having said that, like, when I'm talking about color schemes, I definitely specifically only mean demons. Like, if you have a bunch of cultists and they aren't wearing red armor or red clothing, like, that's a different thing,
Yeah.
Like,
You're talking like the
okay.
literal manifestations of Khorne.
Yeah.
Okay, you guys bring me in on the painting conventions. Okay, if you go to say an ultramarine, which should be blue typically, is it if someone were to take liberties with the color blue on an ultramarine, is it still an ultramarine or is it something else?
Something else, man.
Yeah,
But it depends.
that's what I
though.
think.
Here's a stupid thing is kind of what you're saying about the range of colors. Like, there's a range of blues you could do. Ultramarines, ironically enough, are often described as being cobalt blue. Because it might be
Those
too redundant to
bastards.
say the ultramarine colored ultramarine warriors in every sentence of a book. Right. So does it have to be literally the color of ultramarine, which is an actual color?
No, yeah, but that's the same point I made with Khorne. You could do different shades of red.
Shades of red. Yeah.
But you should still be if you're doing something completely different. If you're doing a black ultramarine, it's not an ultramarine.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. I want to argue with you, but I don't have any good arguments. So, who is he? The Skull Taker? Isn't there one of a special blood letter? Isn't he black instead of red? Or I could be misremembering.
I think you might be misremembering.
Or visually.
Or maybe it's a
picturing.
fantasy.
Possibly.
No, he has a black cape. but he's mostly
Okay, maybe it's his
like,
cape I'm thinking of.
Yeah,
His skin is still
like
red. Yeah. I'm looking at pictures.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, never mind. I retract my statement. I have seen some pretty sick looking black and kind of more lava looking bloodletters. They look pretty sick.
Yeah.
And you can always go lean into the bronze as well. Bronze is also a Khorne color. Brass.
Like you could do accents, like maybe play around with accent colors, but man, I feel like if you don't have that main theme somewhere on your model, it's like,
is it really?
Yeah.
It is.
And it's weird too with Khorne. I feel like it's the easiest to want to dial them in and say they're red and brass. Like we're talking about how Nurgle, it's like, well, the Tau is blue skinned, so like you got to build off the skin color. You got to build the rot off of what's already there. But like Khorne, it's like the archetypal kind of Catholic demon where, you know, it's like dog-headed, goat-feeted, horns. Yeah.
I will say other species might not bleed red. So with that logic, you might get away with different colored bloodletters. Aha. I finally came up with an argument.
Wow. Really, really clever of you, Christian. Yeah. I remember the Dawn of War games for a long time. People were pissed off that the tower bleeding red because they're supposed to be bleeding blue.
And I do think orcs canonically bleed red too, but I want to say they bleed green. It's chlorophyll that comes out of their veins.
Yeah, I always pictured them bleeding green, actually.
Did you?
Yeah, just in my mind. But
or you can go Tolkien orcs and they bleed black.
Oh yeah, that's nice. What about like no blood? Like what if you cut them and it's like not really, like maybe it's almost like picture like almost almost like a super thick kind of gel almost.
Yeah, like an aloe vera plant.
Yeah,
they are like a fungus, right? So I mean.
That's kind of cool. Now I got to think of like a novel that actually describes it. I'm sure the author was probably lazy and just made them bleed red, but
yeah,
it would be interesting.
These are the questions that, you know, the
you up
followers of the philosophers of Khorne talk about.
If I kill an orc, does it truly bleed?
And what blood color is it? Is a green bloodletter really a bloodletter? I think not.
It would be interesting, actually, if they do or don't bleed certain colors. If Khorne, like ironically enough, orcs are probably the most naturally cornate, and if they don't give power to Khorne strictly because they don't bleed.
Well, no, like they have their own gods, which we'll talk about eventually here in a couple episodes, Gork and Mork, that their power gets to, just like how Eldar souls will go to Slaanesh first type thing and their powers. So,
but I'm just saying, like, just in nature, like orcs, you would think just based on how they operate would be the most naturally cornate.
Sure.
They have the most in common just naturally.
Yeah.
But yeah. These are the questions.
Right. These are the questions. More philosophy questions. We'll talk about their 3 main philosophy types. But another fun quote for you. This is from Urgathon of the Skull Takers, champion of Khorne. There is no peace. There is only time wasted between battles. Fun guy. So the 3 philosophies that are pretty prominent when it comes to Khorne is blood for the blood god, skulls for the skull throne, and kill, maim, burn. These are very deep philosophies that, centuries have been spent unpacking them. But, I did it in an afternoon, and here's what I came up with. Khorne's philosophy of the blood for the blood god is a creed rooted in the idea that through the spilling of blood can true devotion to the blood god be demonstrated. For Khorne, bloodshed is the ultimate offering, a gift that fuels his insatiable hunger for violence and war. To shed blood, whether it be in battle, ritual, or unprovoked murder, is to honor Khorne and prove one's loyalty to the eternal cycle of destruction. His followers believe that every drop spilled brings them closer to the blood god's favor, and through blood, they are forged into warriors of unparalleled strength and savagery. There's not enough to fight for victory. It is not enough to fight for victory alone. One must kill with unrestrained fury, for only in death does Khorne's true power emerge. Yeah, that's pretty straightforward. You go, you spill some blood.
Yeah, I was actually going to mention something earlier when we were discussing like why there might be fewer Khorne followers or actual Khorne followers. My first answer is definitely that they're killing each other too, just in their off hours. But also the idea, yeah, we were talking about like, you know, the nature of your kills, but also most people don't like, I would say, are not inclined to killing, at least without a purpose. Very few people kill for killing's sake. Like typically your sociopaths, you like serial killer types, which are very few in number. Most people kill with an ulterior objective in mind, right? Like typically if I'm going to commit violence, it's to achieve another aim.
And you're usually drunk. Yeah.
I was going to say, or I'm drunk. But that's like most people, right? Like, you know, they might kill you while they're robbing you. They want the thing you have. Killing you is just incidental to taking your stuff. But there's very few people who like actually revel in violence. Like they're actually having a good time killing and slaughtering and doing it for the joy of the kill and joy of the slaughter. So that could be it too, is like more of a psychological thing. Which plays into the blood for the blood god, right? Like how many people could truly just kill for the sake of killing?
Yeah. Now
brings
you
us,
kill for it.
Yeah. Brings us to our second philosophy, skulls for the skull throne. The chant of skulls for the skull throne reflects Khorne's demand for constant tribute, a never-ending collection of trophies from the fallen. To offer a skull is to honor Khorne's brutal reign, acknowledging the fragility of life and the inevitability of death in his name. Skulls are the ultimate proof of conquest and slaughter, each one a symbol of victory over the weak, the unworthy, or the foolish. Khorne's followers, in their quest to fill the skull throne, believe that more skulls they collect, the closer they come to becoming the true embodiments of the blood god's power. This philosophy drives them to seek out and slay their enemies with cold precision, leaving behind nothing but the severed skulls of the vanquished. So this speaks more to like that incidental part. Like they're on a mission to collect skulls. They're just like it's a numbers game. Like I need to gather as many skulls, and they'll take it from that family over there and also from the greatest champion of the village. Like they're just collecting as many as they can get. Kind of a segue. I'm working on a Khorne warband, like a Black Legion kind of offshoot. And I'm emphasizing, and this kind of goes to what you're talking about, colors and painting. I'm leaning more into the skulls part of it, like bone, like I call them the bone breakers of Khorne. And like they're the more elevated in ranks, their helmets will be white, like skulls. And like their whole theme is more like the bone collecting aspect, rather than the blood.
That's like sweet if you want to incorporate like again another color.
Sure, and again, like
emphasize the white a little bit, you know, just for the bone.
Yeah, and as Mark was saying though, like this now
you better not be not painting those guys red though.
Oh, they're gonna be partially black though, because again they're Black Legion. But I was gonna say, like, so this is a differentiation. Like Mark was emphasizing the demonic, right? The true embodiment of Khorne, bloodletters, versus like a follower of, right? You could paint in any color.
And this is why there's so few followers of Khorne. You fucks don't want to paint the models red. I don't get it, but you don't want to do it.
There's other
blood paint for the blood god.
Yo, your brother, I won't name which one, Jordan. He was painting some minis way back in the day with blood, some orcs.
He was putting his real blood on their weapons.
What?
Yes.
Yeah.
He should have been painting Khorne miniatures. What did you think?
What an idiot!
The fool. All right, we got another quote here, and then I'll pass it over to Jordan. Prepare the dread claws and unchain the mad ones. Glorious battle awaits us today, for the world below has refused to surrender. Let us descend upon them with fury and rage, giving no quarter and sparing only those warriors who fight well enough to earn a place amongst us. As to the rest, their lives and possessions are ours, but their skulls are for Khorne. Captain Corgan of the World Reavers. Or sorry, Captain Corgan, the World Reaver.
All right, the third philosophy and final. Kill, maim, and burn is Khorne's brutal mantra, a reflection of his ruthless approach to war and destruction. In this philosophy, every act of violence is an expression of devotion, and no opponent is left unpunished. To kill is to end life in Khorne's name, ensuring that the blood god's power is nourished by every breath. To maim is to bring suffering, a reminder to all who stand against Khorne that they are but prey to his endless wrath. To burn is to leave nothing behind but the ashes of the vanquished, ensuring that no trace of weakness or hesitation remains. Through this ruthless trace of weakness or through this ruthless creed, Khorne's followers embrace a philosophy that leaves nothing but destruction in their wake, an all-consuming force that annihilates all who dare defy it. So it's kind of weird to me, like this portion of the philosophy. Again, we were sort of talking about if you follow Khorne, do you just become like an unbridled, mentally deranged lunatic who doesn't really follow Khorne, but just lusts for blood? This kind of seems like that almost. This portion of the philosophy is like, can you be so given to Khorne that you're not even really thinking about loyalty, like you've gone beyond your rational senses and you're just almost operating purely on your instinct and lust for blood?
Yeah, for sure. Like that's exactly what this one is. This is, you've given in and you're just embracing destruction and chaos and madness and mayhem. Where, yeah, like taking of the skulls, that's almost like conquest. You take something, and the blood is the
like,
offering.
Yeah, well, like when you're taking skulls, you're being like goal oriented, whereas like the kill, maim, burn is like, it's just there's no end. It's just kill, maim, and burn.
Yeah. I love it. No, it's cool how each one of these kind of, while they do seem very simple, there is kind of a philosophy behind it where it's like, yeah, blood is an offering, skull is like a trophy, and then killing, maiming, and burning is just like that wanted destruction aspect.
Yeah.
Up next, we'll talk about the blood god's domain, and we got another fun quote from Desark Set Visions Geest of the Encrusted Blade. I saw constant battle. Man fought demon, lightning fought volcano. Geysers of molten brass fought lakes of streaming blood. There was no respite, no peace. That which emerged victorious was immediately set upon by another foe even more terrible. It was blood, spraying and jetting, and skulls adding to the throne that pierced the red skies. It was endless screams of rage and fury made incarnate. It was glorious. So just another blood god fanatic. Very cool. Very fucking metal. Lightning fought volcano. Geysers of molten brass fought lakes of streaming blood. Cool shit. The blood god's domain, Khorne's hellish realm in the warp, is a place where violence is not just a state. It is the foundation of existence. Demons, blood, and death fill every inch of this wretched land, a constant tide of carnage fueled by wrath. At the center of it all, Khorne sits upon his skull throne, eternally watching and testing his forces, pitting them against each other, or only fools who dare challenge the Lord of Battle. The storm of rage rages across the crimson skies, tearing into the land with ferocity. Gale-force winds born of pure fury whip through the desolate plains, scattered across the blood-soaked earth in violent explosions. The land fights back, cracking open with earthquakes and spewing molten brass, temporarily staving off the storms before they renew their assault. Rivers of boiling blood carve through the land, dividing territories claimed by rival bloodthirsters. These torrents swallow all in their path, including demonic legions, and the land responds in kind, closing wounds with rivers of molten metal, sealing them with burning fury. Every part of this realm is locked in an eternal struggle, each one striving to prove its worth to Khorne. As a visitor, would be driven to madness knowing that every element of his domain, the rocks, the winds, the rivers, is alive with violence as the demons themselves. The realm of Khorne is not a curse. It is a living, breathing embodiment of conflict, a place where eternal strife reigns and despair is the only truth. Yeah, cool. That's a good overall picture of his kingdom, but it's made up of a bunch of different neat little realms, and the first one is Khorne's Rage.
At the farthest reaches of Khorne's dominion lies the Ring of Ruin, a chain of volcanoes towering into the heavens, known to the damned as Khorne's Rage. These titanic peaks stretch hundreds of kilometers upward, spewing their molten fury into the sky, black smoke billowing like the shroud of death, rivers of molten brass cascading from their jagged mouths, scorching all who dare approach. This cursed place is suffocated by unyielding darkness, the air thick with ash and suffused with the oppressive heat of an eternal blaze. Beneath the ashen veil, gouts of flame churn relentlessly, obliterating the earth. Bloodstorms rage above the craters, their crimson lightning streaking through the sky in violent arcs, echoing the crack of the bloodthirster's lash, accompanied by the thunderous charge of 1,000 juggernauts, their hooves tearing the land asunder. These mountains stand as the iron wall of Khorne's wrath, their toxic fumes and rivers of burning brass a brutal deterrent to all who would seek to cross them. Only the most daring, the most foolish, would dare challenge such an unforgiving border, and when they do, they are met with the vengeance beyond imagination. The very land itself rises in fury, the mountains of Khorne's Rage writhing like a living beast. From the fiery depths, demons of stone and molten metal are birthed in a cataclysmic rush. Born from their seething anger and mindless violence, these creatures rise from the volcanic earth to strike down the intruders with brutal and relenting force. They smash and sear with the blind wrath of Khorne, tearing through the foolish invaders with no mercy, no reprieve. When their task is complete, they collapse back into the blood-soaked soil, awaiting the call to rise again and unleash destruction upon those who dare defy the Lord of Skulls.
Cool. Fun place.
Little tourist destination for you.
Gotta love those blood storms.
I like the Crimson Lightning. That's a cool touch.
Mm.
It is. All right, so the Demon Forges. At the feet of the volcanoes lies the Hell Forges, a brutal furnace of damnation, where the lesser furnace demons toil without end. Here, amid the roiling heat, weapons of war are forged in the blistering heart of Khorne's Rage. Every axe, sword, and hammer, every suit of armor is born in the molten crucible of destruction. The weapons of Khorne's endless wars take shape in these smelting pits, their edges sharp and thirsty for blood. The very components of Khorne's demon engines, the monstrous, unstoppable war machines, are conceived in this blood-soaked forge. The true assembly of these apocalyptic war beasts occurs in other places, but the tools of their slaughter, blades, cogs, and iron ornaments, are forged here in the fire and fury of Khorne's eternal wrath. The air is thick with heat, suffocating and brutal. The ground trembles with the power of volcanoes above. At any moment, the forges could be drowned in river of molten brass, cascading down in fiery torrents. Yet such death is of no consequence to Khorne. Should a demon fall to the fire, another rises from the blood pits to take its place, and the forges burn on without hesitation. Even in this hellish place, the furnace demons revel in the violence, embracing the danger as a mark of strength. For on the plains of battle, it is the minions of Khorne who clash, spill blood, and die in violent, unholy glory. But at the fringes of this accursed realm, the fate of invaders is far worse. Those who dare trespass into the blood god's domain meet a death of unimaginable suffering. Using tools crafted in the darkest of rites, even the most twisted chaos sorcerer feared to tread. The demon smiths enslave the souls of those mortals who are foolish enough to challenge Khorne's wrath. These lost souls are fused with the anvils of Khorne, their tormented screams melding with the ceaseless clanging of hammers against metal. The heat of the forge is their eternal agony, their very essence bound to each strike of the hammer, each lash of molten metal. When the white-hot iron slams onto the anvil, the suffering of the soul imprisoned within it intensifies, a reminder of Khorne's endless, searing rage. Thus, every weapon, every piece of armor forged in these demon forges is crafted in the fiery furnace of suffering, born to the eternal sound of Khorne's enemies' wretched cries, marking them as instruments of the blood god's wrath, destined to spill the blood of those who stand in his way.
Yeah, cool place again. Just a forge in the middle of a mountain place that can get flooded by fucking lava at any point if you misbehave. And in there, if you're lucky, you get imprisoned in a sword or a chest piece. All types of fun fates for a demon in that spot.
Yeah, it's kind of an interesting, even maybe the only, sorry guys, maybe the only thing I find interesting about Khorne is it is just, I don't know, an interesting mechanic, again, in his own realm where these demons are forged. It's kind of cool. But anyways.
Yeah, I was kind of thinking for a hot second, and I don't think this was just mind-wandering thought where we don't really know where demon weapons are made often, or like how they're made, or like you can get like individual examples, but is there a spot where you can like mass produce demon weapons? And maybe these demon forges would be that spot where you can kind of mass produce demon weapons, as opposed to like the Soul of Forges is more like tanks and like big equipment, where this is like kind of a smaller scale. But that's just kind of drifting with the thought of it.
Yeah, I don't know if there's like it could be, but also like it's a warband. Like, does it need to totally make sense and have like a very precise?
That's true.
Yeah, and like it, it didn't really make sense. Like, okay, so why are Slaanesh demon weapons being made there, or Tzeentch ones? So it wasn't perfect, but it's a fun spot in the warp that if ever I get the chance to explore, I want to find out where they're making all the demon weapons.
Yeah.
If not here, somewhere.
You're trying to get one is the problem here. Where can I get one of these things?
Up next, we got the Blood Pits. Warp energy, the raw, unbridled force of chaos, rages through the realms of the greater gods, its currents thrashing and twisting into violent disarray. It surges and ripples without mercy, sowing mutation and madness in its wake, warping everything it touches. In most places, the malefic power passes quickly, its touch fleeting and destructive. But within the blood god's domain, there are places where the warp does not fade. Here in the blistering heart of Khorne's realm, the raw energy of the warp pools, stirring, churning, festering like a wound that will not heal. When this power gathers, it scours the land in violent upheaval, gouging deep craters into the blasted plains. These pits are born in an instant, or they may take millennia. Time is meaningless in the realm of chaos, as merciless as the bloodthirsty god who rules it. Eventually, the warp storms begin to lose their fury, and the terrible energy seeps into the pits they've created. When this happens, Khorne's blood-soaked command echoes through his war hosts. He orders the slaughter to escalate. His minions unleashed to spill blood in a frenzy of savagery, destruction, and violence. The souls that fall in such an infernal campaign are not simply destroyed. No, their blood is drawn into the pit, where it is mixed with molten brass and Khorne's own vile, murderous bile. This hellish concoction boils into a dark lake, the blood pit, a sacred pool of slaughter and rage. From these pits, new horrors are born. Bloodletters, furnace demons, and lesser fiends rise from the blood-infused lake. their forms twisted and primal, summoned by Khorne's wrath. These new warriors are forged for one purpose: to spill more blood, to feed the ever-hungry pit. From the moment they emerge, they are driven by unrelenting bloodlust, bound to the will of the blood god, and charged with singular brutal task: kill and claim blood. The blood they spill is not their own. It is the fuel that will keep the pit from running dry. But all pits will eventually dry up, their thirst sated. Yet even as one pit empties, the storm gathers once more, boiling, swelling, ready to explode in a new eruption of slaughter. The cycle of bloodshed begins anew, endless and unbroken, driven by the wrath of the blood god. Fucking crazy. Yeah, all those pools of blood, you know, that get kind of formed around and collected, and yeah, kind of gross, kind of really gross.
Yeah, it probably starts to stink after a little while.
Yeah. And I'm sure that blood's not like strained. I'm sure there's chunks of fucking hair and flesh in it and just yeah.
Pure liquid blood.
No,
It's
it's
even,
not
like,
blood angels like drinking
semi-coagulated.
blood.
Yeah,
Yeah. Fucking
Oh,
rank.
it's beautiful. It's truly the heaven I want to go to.
Havana.
All right, let's get into the rivers of blood. Raging like the fury of Khorne himself, the rivers of blood carve through the land, harsh and violent, splitting its domain as jagged crimson scars upon the earth. These vast blood-choked torrents stretch for miles, fed by the endless slaughter of the god's followers and the wretched souls who fall beneath his wrath. Every drop of blood spilled in his name, whether from the vanquished or the victorious, inevitably finds its way into this infernal channels. The blood within boils, a seething testament to the eternal fury of Khorne. A choking steam of vaporized blood rises in the air, thick with the stench of death and war, painting the world a perpetual hellish red. Towering, swollen bubbles surface from the depths, bloated with the remains of those unworthy enough to have fallen to their fiery rivers. With a deafening hiss, the bubbles burst, sending hot, blood-soaked droplets soaring through the air, falling back to earth with the force of a brutal strike. The ground is pelted with sprays that resemble the frenzied, arterial bursts of slaughtered beasts, staining the land with carnage of war and the unquenchable thirst of Khorne. Yeah. I think I know where I'm going to get my next energy drink from.
New river of blood. Just one sip, and you'll have the energy to slay a whole town.
Excellent marketing campaign.
Or at the very least, your work day.
Yeah. Slay your work day. Yeah. There you go.
All right, up next, we got the Lake of Slaughter. Not to be confused with the blood pits. This is a little different. Thousands of blood-drenched rivers tear through the desolate landscape, carving into the earth before plunging into the abyss that stretches for miles. From this towering precipice, waterfalls of gore cascade downward, a ceaseless torrent of death. Below, a vast lake swells, larger than any mortal ocean, a roiling pit of madness, inhabited by creatures beyond comprehension. Leviathans forged of brass and bone writhe through the lake's depths, their hunger unending as they consume all in their path. Beast, man, or monster, it matters not. Above the lake, bloodthirsters clash with demons forged from pure solid blood. Their battles a cacophony of blood and carnage and rage. The very air trembles with the fury of their violence, and any who dare venture too close to the lake's surface find themselves plucked from the sky, dragged down to join the carnage below. The surface of the blood lake boils with the blood fury of the blood war as raves of blood rise in the forms of the blood from their... Yeah, okay, you get it. There's a lot of blood in this area. It's a lake of slaughter. It's a blood place.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Beating the theme to death.
There's a lot of blood. And you would have alcohol poisoning in a drinking game. All right. The Brass Citadel. On the far shore of the Lake of Slaughter, the earth is a graveyard of skulls, so many that not even the foundation beneath them can be touched. These skulls stretch for miles, a testament to the endless carnage a desolate expanse that leads to the looming, impenetrable black wall, the outer barrier of Khorne's brass citadel. Standing atop the wall are the demons, their eyes sharp as razors, their fangs and swords gleaming with the promise of death. They are ever watchful, guardians of the blood god's domain, prepared to lay down their lives in a heartbeat to protect their master. Within the citadel's walls, fleshhounds prowl, their senses keen to the blood scent of any fool who dares encroach upon their master's territory. High above, the bloodthirsters soar between the outer walls and the inner keep, their keen senses attuned to the slightest tremor in the air. Few have the audacity to challenge the brass fortress. Its defenders strike terror into the hearts of all but the most reckless of Khorne's enemies. It's kind of interesting. He's like this. His castle basically is like protected by a bunch of animals.
Yeah, it's interesting going through this. Like when we were talking about the other gods, they had more demons, like lesser demons, greater demons, beasts, steeds. And when I was doing Khorne, he has the least amount, but then Khorne has a bunch of these like extra little demons in his realm. Like he's got the furnace demons, he's got those like Leviathan demons, he's got like demons of blood that battle. Like he's got a bunch more in his realm that just kind of serve him and his leisure of fighting.
I always, and I could be wrong on this, I always pictured those other demons to just be forms of bloodletters. I could be wrong. That's just literally where my mind defaulted to. Like, do you think those forged demons are literally different demons than bloodletters, or they're in the form of bloodletters, or just serving a purpose or a function?
Yeah, that's an interesting one. Like, I picture him kind of different, but, you know, you still picture him humanoid, and, you know, you still picture him kind of like muscular. So then really the only thing that could be different would be like their head shape, probably, you know?
Sure, like their legs or appendages might be more formed to what their task is, but I don't know. That's just where my mind defaulted to.
Sure.
Are you referring to like the bloodthirsters or
no, like these other side demons, like the ones in the forges and stuff, or like they do mention those rock demons too on the far periphery, which is a unique form.
Yeah, bunch of just like random one-offs that just kind of serve him in his realm.
Yeah. When an assault comes, the full fury of Khorne's might is unleashed, shaking the very foundations of reality itself. The force that would dare strike against Khorne's citadel must be prepared for an onslaught that could tear the fabric of the realms asunder. Though the other chaos gods covet the power that could be gained by overthrowing the blood god, the risk of such a war Khorne could turn back in a single act of wrath, is too great to incite lightly. Should Khorne rise from his throne in anger, his favored blade, the Warmaker, would cleave through all opposition with a single stroke, ending the lives of his enemies and possibly the very fabric of existence itself. Khorne, in his rage, once struck the earth with that same sword, splitting the ground and creating a wound that will never heal. The weapon, known as the end of all things, can obliterate entire worlds with its might. Such is a terrifying force of the blood god that no one dares risk war lightly. Thus, the ruinous powers live in a delicate and brutal balance, one that can be shattered only by the most dire of causes. So what is the end of all things? Is this like a melee weapon or like a...
It's a sword.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
but like a super fancy like warp sword that like
it
doesn't have shape necessarily. Yeah, exactly. Like
when Khorne slaughters the enemies of his rival, he does not seek retribution. He does not pursue them beyond the battlefield. Once the bloodshed is done, Khorne returns to his throne of skulls, reclaiming his rightful place at the pinnacle of carnage. This is the unyielding rhythm of the great game, where blood is shed, but balance remains unbroken.
Just a warning for everyone in the chat. I'm taking names of everyone who makes a female period joke there. And I will be reading them out at the end of the show to publicly shame all you filthmongers.
I mean, there is a pretty heavy flow of blood in this episode. I'm not gonna lie.
I will not allow those kind of jokes, Jordan. Period. The Throne of Skulls. At the heart of the brass citadel beyond the bastion stair and the 8 towering iron pillars, Khorne sits upon the Throne of Skulls, an unyielding titan of wrath. From this grim seat, the god commands his blood legions and mortal thralls to bring destruction to the furthest reaches of the galaxy. With every victory, Khorne's thirst for blood deepens, gnawing at him, insatiable. With every failure, he claims the blood of the fallen champions, their deaths feeding the rivers of his brutal realm. Blood is Khorne's, and if it must be harvested from his own servants, then so be it. The mound of skulls surrounding the Throne of Skulls rises high, a twisted testament to the god's dominance. It is formed from the bones of the fallen Khornate champions and their broken enemies. Were these skulls capable of speech, they would howl of the savage times before the Long War, when Angron, the Primarch of the World Eater, had yet to be pledged himself to the Blood God. Others would recount the crushing blunders that led entire species to fall beneath the relentless axes of Khorne's berserk legions. But the skulls closest to the throne, those of Khorne's favored champions who have died after hundreds of campaigns drenched in slaughter, still cry out, their voices echoing through eternity. Their battle cry, the last they ever roared, shatters the silence. Blood for the Blood God! I love that. The skulls are just psychically screaming at you. Some are storytellers telling you how fate.
I used to be a warrior once, and then I took an arrow through the skull.
Yeah, his realm's pretty neat. It's pretty big. Like I kind of mentioned, it's interesting. He is not a venturer in his realm. He sits on his throne and he surveys his realm, and he doesn't really get up or move or do much of anything nowadays. But he could. You know, like I said, maybe he gets up every now and again and swings the end of all things and opens up a warp rift here or there, but it's not much. But we'd get examples of Nurgle, however, who has a little more mobility despite his gigantic size. And he wanders the garden, you know, and he picks his flowers and he picks his herbs for his new poisons and stuff. And, you know, yeah, Khorne's pretty immobile.
He is the god of disability.
I mean,
His
when you
great
have
skull
that
throne is a wheelchair.
when you have that sweet throne, why would you ever want to leave?
Yeah. Do you think it's comfortable or what?
It's
That's
gotta
why-
be.
It's
No,
like a
I mean,
massive bean bag, you know? It's like all the skulls in a little bag, and he kind of just
like fills it up. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I was gonna say. Like he's constantly in the pursuit of the most comfortable throne. That's why he keeps adding skulls to it.
maybe one more skull will do the trick. Dang it. Maybe one more skull.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, it's kind of cool. You kind of get like the picture of his realm. Like you're starting on the outside, you travel through the mountains, and it's like a journey all the way into the citadel and up into the Mountain of Skulls, up to his throne. Like it's a very visual progression.
Yeah.
So,
Well, like, you know, we talk about Khorne, and his realm is just as much Khorne as Khorne. You know, it's all just an extension of his power. Same with his demons and stuff, and it just really shows and manifests so clearly like what he is all about.
so disappointingly, there's no cornfields.
Ah. Yeah.
Okay, no more
What
corn
has this all
jokes.
been
It's like
for?
the lowest common denominator.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
felt
like you got
dirty
corn
even
jokes,
saying
you
it.
got other
Period
types of
jokes.
blood, yeah, period jokes, and yeah, those are low for sure. Low hanging fruit.
Yes. Let's elevate ourselves in the conversation.
Yes. Let's talk about something more sophisticated.
Let's talk about
Like
corn.
mindless slaughter. Okay.
Actually, I would say it totally makes sense that Khorne, yeah, the gods are always kind of in this balance in the great game and stuff, but Khorne is certain, like different gods ascend and descend, and like their power waxes and wanes. And certainly, like in a world of 40k, where the tagline like "only war," Khorne would be in ascent, right? Like he is particularly powerful nowadays,
Yeah.
being 40k times.
Yeah.
But let's get into his rivalries. In the great game of the Chaos Gods, Khorne's hatred for Slaanesh, the Prince of Pleasure, burns with a fury unmatched. The hedonistic, self-indulgent depravity of Slaanesh is an abomination to Khorne's martial soul. The Lord of Battle dreams endlessly of wrapping his blood-drenched fingers around Slaanesh's fragile throat, crushing it until the prince's twisted screams of ecstasy turn into shrieks of torment, only to silence forever with the satisfying snap of divine bone. The warrior's creed, honor, duty, and self-sacrifice that drives Khorne's very being stands in violent opposition to the philosophy of indulgence that drives Slaanesh. To Khorne, the pursuit of pleasure is a perverse mockery of true strength. His demonic legions and those of Slaanesh know no peace, warring on sight with an unbridled ferocity, while their mortal followers are driven to kill each other with equal bloodlust. Khorne's rage, however, is not limited to the Prince of Pleasure. He holds Tzeentch, the architect of fate, in equally violent disdain. The scheming manipulator of destinies enrages Khorne to no end. The sorcerer's puppeteers who hide in shadows and work their dark magic instead of waging battle and blood are everything Khorne despises. Tzeentch's followers are often caught in brutal conflict with Khorne's berserk legions, a clash of strategy versus savagery. But there are times when even those two bitter enemies find common cause. When the rivers of blood run deep and the prospect of carnage is great, Tzeentch's schemes and Khorne's bloodlust align. For a fleeting moment, the star of chaos burns brighter in the mortal realm as their legions march together, the fires of war raging at their side. Yet even in such alliances, betrayal is inevitable. Khorne's blood-crazed disciples and Tzeentch's twisted manipulators will always turn on each other, their short-lived pact shattering in the madness of battle.
Yeah. It makes sense who he doesn't like, which gods and why. It's like, you got this big jock guy who likes doing push-ups. He's not going to like the fucking art stool student major, If we're playing high school chaos gods here, those two aren't getting along.
Or the chess nerd.
Yeah, or the chess nerd. Fuck.
All right. Go ahead.
Yeah, up next we have the preferred. Now, once again, this is something I kind of came up with this concept. Like, this isn't canon. I'm sure other people have thought of it. That's not necessarily why I'm telling you that I came up with it. Just, it's not canon is what I'm saying here.
All right. Khorne, the blood god, stands apart from the other chaos gods, fueled solely by the pursuit of war, bloodshed, and slaughter. His wrath knows no allegiance, his hatred no limits. For Khorne craves only carnage and victory on the battlefield. He holds no love for the manipulative machinations of Tzeentch, nor the hedonistic excesses of Slaanesh. The insidious whispering of Nurgle's decay is equally beneath him. For Khorne seeks the violent, visceral glory of combat, not slow decay. Yet, if there were one god Khorne could begrudgingly respect, it would be Nurgle. For while Nurgle's methods are far removed from Khorne's ferocity, there is a certain grim endurance in the Plague Lord's unyielding fight against death that Khorne can understand. But even that distant, cold respect and understanding that blood and pain, though different in form, are the ultimate forces that drive the universe.
Yeah.
Just a mutual respect over death.
Yeah.
Which is very much Nurgle and Khorne.
Yeah. It's kind of cool when you see those little alliances and thinking of what event in real space happened that made gods try to align, okay, put their grudges on the side and be like, no, we really need to make some cool Nurgle demon alliance, or some Nurgle Khorne alliance and go raid this planet. Like, it does happen. But yeah, it has to be some super special event for sure.
Yeah. I mean, like, there's the obvious big ones where all four align, like Horus or Abaddon. But certainly there's like minor instances, minor champions who will pick maybe 2 or 3 of the gods that will align for a particular purpose.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that happens, like, you know, your nameless heroes that you get to make up on the tabletop or whatever.
Yeah, the gods are jealous as well, though. So not everyone gets to pick two gods to worship. You know, that's gonna upset probably both gods, and you're not gonna gain the favor of either. Then it's a delicate game.
Yeah,
and you do wonder if, like, you know, Nurgle and Khorne, like you say, they both love death, and so maybe they have that mutual respect, but they could also steal followers from one another who are inclined in that direction. I don't know, it's just a thought.
Yeah. Trading followers around. I'll trade you 10 cultists from the planet Felucia for that one guy over there, that Ogren. Yeah.
I love it when you mix Star Wars and 40K Mark.
Not a very creative type over here. I had to steal from, like, not 40K to sound creative.
You could see, like, maybe a certain type of, you know, 80-year-old politician that is very fond of drone strikes, being both a fan of Nurgle and Khorne. You know, there's ways to make them both happy.
The Deathless and the Warmonger.
There you go.
Yeah. Up next in this episode, we're gonna briefly talk about all the different Khorne demons. Like I kind of mentioned, I think this needs an episode. You know, I could write a paragraph, I could write 2 paragraphs, but I still feel like even 2 paragraphs wasn't enough. Like, it'd be cool to talk about what kind of weapons they use, like their armor, I suppose, could be kind of interesting. What do they actually look like? I kind of describe a little bit like, oh, they're red demonic looking creatures, but maybe we could get a little deeper. So that will be an episode at some point in time, just focusing like actually on the demons and talking about them and everything you can possibly get. But here's the little quick disclaimer for you guys. Of all the demons of chaos, the demons of Khorne are embodiment of bloodlust and slaughter, massive and terrifying and merciless. They are the beasts forged in the crucible of war, with cruel horns, gnarled fangs, skin as red as the blood they spill, and eyes that burn with eternal rage. Their purpose is clear: to rip, tear, and destroy. Their hunger for carnage is insatiable, and their fury knows no equal. Only the fool dares to bargain with the demons of Khorne without the endless supply of blood to offer in exchange for their fleeting life. The blood-soaked pact is simple: delivering them to the slaughter, and they will grant you their wrath. Briefly, but once unleashed, these creatures will spare no one, charging into the fray with wild abandon, seeking any and all victims to dismember in their wake. However, such demons are as treacherous as they are brutal. Any ally could swiftly find themselves torn apart by these raving beasts, for they care not for loyalty, only bloodshed. Yet, for many, this savage volatility serves a singular violent purpose. There is no greater tool than Khorne's wrath, even if it turns upon its summoner. Like I kind of mentioned, there's not a lot of Khorne demons. We'll go through them, starting with the Daemon Prince, which is the most flexible and least standard of all of them. But here we go.
Khorne's demon princes are towering, blood-drenched monstrosities, the ultimate reward for mortal champions who have slaughtered in the blood god's name beyond reckoning. Twisted by Khorne's will, they become living engines of destruction, their flesh fused with jagged brass armor, their veins coursing with molten rage. Each wields immense strength, their every strike capable of sundering tanks and tearing through squads of warriors with terrifying ease. Unlike the more calculating servants of other chaos gods, Khorne's demon princes are driven by an insatiable thirst for carnage, leading brutal warbands or rampaging alone across the battlefield in search of endless slaughter. Their presence is heralded by the clash of brass, the roars of demonic warhounds, and the ever-present scent of blood, an unstoppable force of destruction utterly devoted to the endless war that is Khorne's will. Yeah, like all chaos gods have their demon prince. Like, that's pretty much what all followers of chaos are ultimately striving for the most part.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe the one thing that difference Khorne's Demon Prince against the other ones would be like the lack of psychic powers. But man, there are Khorne Demon Princes that do use psychic powers out there. It just would not be as common.
Yeah, I would put it on a gradient. Like it's definitely less typical, but it's certainly not impossible.
Yeah.
All right, shall we get into the greater demons? All right, I'm gonna take a crack at pronouncing the first one. Let's see how I do. So in English, it's the Bloodthirster, but his actual name is Kak Akwas Kishikakami, I think.
Congratulations, Jordan.
Excellent demonese, Jordan.
Yeah, you just summoned a demon in your basement. Congrats.
Oh, that's what that was.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that is Bloodthirster in that dark tongue that we talked about. Which kind of, brought me to another episode. Maybe we need to do an episode of all the different languages that we've come across, because I've never really seen that dark tongue, but they do have some growing examples of it coming through. So
that'd be kind of a fun episode. Bloodthirsters are the towering rage-fueled greater demons of Khorne, embodiments of unrelenting warfare and slaughter. Standing as colossal juggernauts of muscle and brass, their hulking forms are wreathed in fire and shadow, their vast bat-like wings darkening the battlefield as they descend upon their prey. Each wields brutal weapons, massive axes and barbed whips infused with the raw fury of the blood god, capable of sundering war machines and annihilating entire regiments with a single earth-shattering blow. Utterly devoid of mercy or restraint, bloodthirsters live for one purpose: to spill blood and claim skulls in Khorne's name, leading demon legions and berserk cultists in apocalyptic battles that leave nothing but ruin in their wake. Their presence alone turns a tide of war, as the sight of these nightmare creatures descending upon the enemy shatters resolve, ensuring that only the strongest or the most foolish dare stand against the wrath of Khorne made manifest.
cool. Yeah, fun demon. He's got wings. He's got big weapons. There's a couple different types that would be cool to go into, like, when they released their new Bloodthirster. I don't know, maybe it was 7th edition when they came out with that box set. They came out with like the Lord of Blood, and he had an axe, and then there was one with like 2 chains, and then a couple different variants.
Whips.
But yeah.
I think there was a strong similarity, let's say, with the Balrog from Lord of the Rings. Although the debate around the wings is still out there, but we won't go there right now.
Yeah, my way back in the day, and you probably remember this army, but I made a true scale World Eaters army, and it had some Khorne demons with it that I did like the dipping technique in. But I used the or a Balrog as my Bloodthirster, because like you said, man, it's almost perfect. Slapped on a bunch of armor plates on it.
Yeah, that was the cherry on the cake, was all the brass like armor pieces you glued on.
Yeah,
and like chains
I took
and stuff.
Yeah, chains, fantasy shields and stuff, and yeah.
What
cool.
happened to that guy?
I probably burnt it in a fiery pit of blood. Trying to get more plastic, trying to do a ritual of more plastic.
You just got cancer though, because you breathe in those fumes.
Yeah. You win some, you lose some.
God.
Yeah. The next demons we'll talk about are the lesser demons, and that is the Bloodletter, or in the dark tongue, there's a bunch of apostrophes in here, and I think every time there's an apostrophe, you do a little tongue wiggle, like just so you know, for future reading reference. Bloodletters are the snarling, sword-wielding foot soldiers of Khorne, the embodiment of his wrath-given form, tall and lean with crimson skin. Their bodies are built for battle, sinewy muscles coiled beneath demonic hide, tougher than iron. Black horns crown their bestial heads, and their blazing eyes smolder with sexy look as they charge into the fray. Howling praises to the blood god. Yeah, smoldering eyes was a weird choice on my part, but here we are nonetheless. Each wields a jagged hellblade, a weapon so saturated with Khorne's murderous will that it can carve through ceramite and flesh alike with terrifying ease. Though they fight in a disciplined ranks, their savagery is barely restrained. Their thirst for slaughter barely contained as they seek to drown the battlefield in gore. Wherever bloodletters march, they leave only ruin. Their presence a crimson omen that the blood god's hunger will soon be sated. Cool little guys.
And by little, probably like 7 feet, 8 feet tall. I would
Yeah.
think. Like they're
like
small on the demon scale as lesser demons, but like compared to humans.
Yeah, and they got those weird like reverse knee goat leg things. So like if they stand straight, man, yeah, they might even be pushing like 10 feet.
Yeah. What do you call those? There's a name for the reverse knee. It's totally escaped me. But yeah. Yeah, and like you said, you described them earlier. They're pretty much like the prototypical demon from like Christian, I'll say mythology, like and how they're described. Like a lot of the Catholic interpretations of demons come from like a combination of other sources like Pan or like satyrs, but definitely those vibes coming from these guys.
Yeah,
red skin, horns. Man, that reverse knee thing is driving me crazy. I used to know.
I'll Google it for you.
Yes, please. All right. While we're at that, let's get into the beasts. Flesh hounds, or Ka'akayashik. By the way, lots of K's, H's, Y's. That's kind of like the demonese vibe of everything Khorne. Flesh hounds are the relentless hunters of Khorne, ferocious demonic beasts bred for the sole purpose of running down and slaughtering the blood god's enemies, towering over mortal warhounds. Their muscular crimson-scaled bodies are covered in thick brass collars, inscribed with anti-sorcery runes, allowing them to tear through even the most powerful psykers with impunity. Their maws are filled with jagged fangs, their breath reeking of brimstone as they bay in anticipation of the kill. Once a flesh hound is caught the scent of its prey, escape is impossible. These relentless predators will track their quarry across war zones, warp-torn battlefields, and even through the fabric of reality itself. When they finally strike, it is with terrifying speed and overwhelming brutality, their pack instinct driving them to rip apart their victims in a flurry of fangs and claws, all in tribute to Khorne's endless thirst for slaughter. I vaguely remember them too, particularly hunting cowards on the battlefield.
Yeah. They can like smell your fear through the warp.
Yeah, and like they especially prey and hunt cowards. So.
Yeah.
It goes back to that martial pride part of Khorne.
Yeah. The reverse knee, I think, is called the digigrade. Does that make sense? Or is the AI Google fucking annoying with what they provide because it's never right? The other option of what it could be called potentially is the Genu rectoranum. But I think that's a medical condition for humans and not necessarily animals. So, here we are. Yeah. Somebody in the chat tell us, because I can't.
All right, we're on the steeds now. Juggernauts, or in the demon tongue, Ka-a-a-aka.
I'm sorry, are you choking or
you forgot the little tongue wiggles, Jordan.
Juggernauts of Khorne are living war machines, hulking demonic beasts of brass and fury, forged in the forges, that's redundant, of the blood god himself. A fusion of demon and metal, their massive quadrupedal forms are clad in thick plates of jagged brass, their maws filled with iron fangs capable of biting through ceramite and bone alike. Their red-hot eyes burn with unrelenting rage as they charge into battle, trampling anything in their path with thunderous force, leaving only blood and ruin in their wake, often ridden by Khorne's chosen warriors, bloodletters, or mortal champions who have earned the blood god's brutal favor. Juggernauts serve as unstoppable instruments of destruction, their hooves pounding like war drums as they bear their riders into the heart of battle. To stand before charging Juggernaut is to embrace death, for nothing short of a god's wrath can halt their murderous advance. Kind of cool. They got some mounts, some demon mounts.
I've always loved those, the blood crushers and the juggernauts, man. That was one of the coolest things.
Yeah, they certainly like reek of brutality. Like they are the embodiment of 40k. Like
yeah. Living machine metal demons. Yeah, very cool. Speaking of living machine metal demon things, demon engines in general, Khorne's demon engines are towering abominations of brass, blood, and demonic fury, monstrous war machines fused with the savage will of the blood god. These nightmarish constructs, crafted in the hellish forges of the warp, are powered by bound demonic essences that hunger for slaughter. Their massive forms bristling with jagged spikes, gore-slicked chains, and roaring furnaces that belch smoke and flame. Whether it be the skull-harvesting Lord of Skulls, the rampaging Brass Scorpion, or the gore-soaked Mauler Fiend, each demon engine is a relentless instrument of destruction, tearing through enemy lines in a berserker frenzy like grinding metal and hellfire. Unlike the cold, calculating war machines of the Imperium, Khorne's demon engines are possessed with furious sentience, howling with rage as they crush, burn, and eviscerate all in their path, reveling in the carnage they unleash in the blood god's name. Yeah. And they can come in all shapes and sizes. Vashtar is a creative scientist, after all. He'll come up with something cool for you to put a demon in.
Yeah, I always like the Brass Scorpion the most. Not a big fan of their other, what is it, the Lord of Skulls?
yeah, like that tank human.
yeah, that one was always silly to me. I do like it when people chop off the torso and put that on top of like a pair of night legs.
Oh yeah,
that's a cool mech, but a half body on like a half track is not.
And that thing's like the master of melee combat, and you're like,
yeah, it's like,
wow,
I can't even walk. Yeah. But yeah, definitely the Brass Scorpion I always loved from Forge World. Very cool model if you guys want to look it up.
What did you like about it? Like, I agree, 10 out of 10 minis, but like, did you like that it was it a good standalone mini? Did it speak about Khorne to you in a specific way, or like what drew you to
I just like the Scorpion look. I think it's so sick. Yeah, just purely on the aesthetics.
Yeah.
And the way when it's painted with that almost like enamel finish.
Ooh,
oh my gosh, 10 out of 10. Yeah.
The chat says the goatnies don't have a specific name. I think science would beg to differ there, Jack. I'm sure it has a name. How humans name everything.
Supposed to describe them? Goatnies.
Yeah.
The digigrade thing is more to do with where you walk on the foot, though. So that wasn't it. Digitigrade is like walking on your toes, and plantigrade's like walking on a flat foot, like your whole foot. But typically, the reverse knee thing, animals that do the reverse knee thing are digitigrade. But in any case, we're talking about the Lord of Skulls here and how silly he is. I do struggle with demon engines broadly. Why? I don't know if it's just the Mauler Fiend and that freaking Drake that they came out with. I was never really big fans of them. I'm not gonna lie.
Like, and they suffer from two things. Like, they're like iconic units, quote unquote, or whatever, are not very good. They're like Pokemon, man. You got the Bulbasaur, the Charizard for the Helldrake, and the Venusaur for like the one with all the they're not the best, but demon engines come in all shapes and sizes, and like
sure.
I like to
think I like the Soul Grinder. I've always liked the look of the Soul Grinder.
I think they just suffer from one of those, like, well, GW can't make a demon engine for everything, but man, there has to be some wild demon engines out there.
Sure, and pretty much anything like you said, like it's almost like orcs. Like you can make anything into an orc vehicle. You can make
Yeah.
anything into a demon engine. Grab that old
Vashtar
barb.
wakes up one morning and it's just like, what do I shove a demon into today?
Today. I was gonna say you just take your daughter's Barbie that she's not using anymore and kit bash that.
Heck yeah.
All right, let's get into the mortal followers of Khorne. His blood.
No, sorry.
Oh,
these are the demonic legions still, the blood legions.
oh, okay, my bad. Let's get into the other demon, or like the broader armies of Khorne, let's say, which go by the name blood legions. Of all the demonic armies of chaos, none are as brutal, merciless, and martial as Khorne's blood legions. The blood god's followers, though savage and relentless, abide by a code driven by might and fury. It is not only strength that defines the ranks within Khorne's legions. It is an unyielding pursuit of dominance through slaughter, a hierarchy built on sheer martial prowess and the brutal laws of combat and survival. Khorne's domain is the Immaterium is the largest cart through endless war and an unceasing tide of carnage. No other god's minions can match the ferocity, the raw violence, and the overwhelming power of Khorne's forces in close combat. On the battlefield, the blood of countless enemies stains the earth, and the strength of Khorne's demons determines where they stand in the endless blood-soaked ranks of the blood legions. At the apex of this infernal hierarchy stand the bloodthirsters, the very demigods of war. These titanic beings are clad in baroque, blood-soaked armor, wielding terrible axes of brass and whips of fire, their very presence inspiring terror and dread. But they are not mere warriors. They are generals, the dominant overlords of Khorne's blood legions, guiding the hordes of lesser demons in a relentless march across the battlefield. They bark commands like the roar of battle-hardened warlords, asserting their dominance through the annihilation of the strongest foes, tearing through the enemy's ranks and proclaiming their undying loyalty to Khorne through their ruthless conquest. A bloodthirster is not just a warrior. They are the embodiment of slaughter. They are, and wherever they tread, their retinue of champions follows, each eager to spill more blood in their wake. The blood legions themselves are terrifying in their scale, structure, and fury. They are divided into 8 cohorts, each made up of 8 demonic packs, savage units led by a herald of Khorne, or in rare cases, a Daemon Prince. The composition of these cohorts can vary depending on the nature of the legion and the purpose it serves in Khorne's eternal war. The red-tide legions, for instance, are an endless wave of bloodletters, their ranks thrashing forward in a merciless assault, overwhelming their foes with the torrent of blood and violence. Behind them, furies swoop in, feasting upon the corpses of the slain, driven by the god of blood's insatiable hunger. In contrast, the Hellfire legions are siege specialists, their ranks bolstered by the terrifying skull cannons, soul grinders, and the colossal lords of skulls, war engines of pure destruction. These legions strike from the shadows, their long-range fire smashing apart the defenses of their enemies, paving the way for the onslaught to come. The Brazen Thunder legions, however, are the fastest and most mobile of Khorne's legions, with the crushing weight of their blood thrones and the ferocious charge of their blood crushers. They strike like a storm, shaking the earth beneath their feet. No foe can outrun the flesh hounds that relentlessly hunt down any who dare to flee. The true number of blood legions is known only to Khorne himself, for their ranks are ever-changing, fluctuating with the pulsing tides of the warp. When a blood legion is at full strength, it is formed of 8 cohorts, each made up of 8 demonic packs. But the structure is not fixed. Battlefields shift, rifts open, and the rage of the warp twists the formations and cohorts, clashing and subjugating other packs, tearing through the ranks in a savage, ritualized frenzy to bring in new demons into their fold. The blood legions are a force of unrelenting war, each demon, each warrior, an instrument of slaughter. Only the strong survive, and only the strongest rise to the top for the domain of Khorne. Victory is measured in rivers of blood and the bodies of the vanquished. Yeah, it's interesting to note that they do adopt a very strict hierarchy, which makes sense because, like, that is part of warfare. Like having your generals and commanders, and like, you know, that top down. There is like a strategic approach. It's not all just mindless violence, although that's certainly part of it.
Yeah, you
Seems
don't
to
quite
be
see that same.
I would say it's most of it with Khorne. Like,
Sure, but you still need to direct that rage and frenzy, right? Like,
yeah, I don't know. I feel like it's almost a little incoherent, a little bit. Like, some of Khorne just seems like blind rage, almost without regard for strategy or timing or anything like that. And then you have things like they have like a whole structured hierarchy.
But also hierarchy can be enforced just through brutality too, which is a Khornate aspect, right? Like it's almost like orcs again, like the biggest and the strongest rule. The greater demons and the demon princes like just dominate over and lord over their lesser demon counterparts. That is very Khornate.
Yeah.
And also everything in the warp is like an exercise in contradictions and things too.
Yeah, that's true.
That sounds like plot armor to me.
I do like how there is these different ways. So like, you know, we're tabletop people. We love the minis and how you can kind of build your armies in these different themes of the brazen thunder, or, you know, maybe you like all juggernauts and you call it like the stampeding legion or what, the stampeders. There we go. Yeah, it's kind of cool.
Yeah.
All right, let's get into the notable demons of Khorne. First, we start with Angron, the Red Angel. A tortured soul twisted by Khorne's will, Angron, demon primarch of the World Eaters, returns to real space in storms of bloodshed, leading his berserk legions to slaughter in an endless tide of rage. Ka-Banda, the bloodthirster who broke Sanguinius and shattered High Fleet Leviathan. Ka-Banda is Khorne's Crimson Executioner, ensuring that only he will have the pleasure of bringing the Blood Angels to ruin. Karanak, the relentless three-headed flesh hound of Khorne. Karanak prowls time and space itself, hunting those who have dared to defy the Blood God's wrath with a scent that never fades. Skarbrand, the Exiled One. Once Khorne's mightiest bloodthirster, now a whirlwind of endless fury, Skarbrand carves his bloody path across the Materium, exiled yet serving the blood god in an eternal frenzy of destruction. Skulltaker, the deadliest of all bloodletters, Skulltaker rides forth on his juggernaut, demanding single combat from the greatest warriors of the warp, their skulls claimed in Khorne's name as eternal trophies of slaughter.
There's a good little teaser for you guys on those. You know, Angron, he's gonna get 2 episodes eventually. The demons, they could probably all get lumped into one episode, and you could get a pretty good episode out of, you know, Ka-Banda, Kanarak, Skarbrand, the Skull Taker. But you got a little teaser, and there are named characters out there. We're almost done this episode. We got the call-ins filling up here. Before we do that, I'll just give you some context going forward. That's Khorne. He's pretty cool. He's really simple, man. It was hard to stretch this episode. You can only say blood, murder, and violence in so many different ways. But we're going to do it 2 more times. Like I said, when going through this, man, there's just so much cool information I want to share. So we're going to do an episode on the Blood Legion. In fact, we're going to do an episode on all the different Chaos Gods legions. And then we're also going to do the cults, which are the mortal followers. So you got the legions, which are the demons, and you got the cults, which are the mortal followers. So could be a lot of cool stuff in those 2 episodes. And, you know, in those ones, we can talk about the gifts of Khorne as well, something we didn't get to really touch on at all in this episode. But for a reason, that will go with the cults of Khorne. So, yeah, I think let's get the call-ins. Give Jack 1 sec to kind of get to his microphone as I slow talk it. And he's ready. Hey, Jack, welcome. Okay, not so ready.
Wait, no, I was. All right. I didn't realize I had the actual physical microphone muted already. That was good.
Okay.
I just to kick it off, I wanted to get back into what you said about Khorne being born in like the like Middle Ages and stuff. I genuinely, we read like one line where it was like Khorne really likes it when humans fight humans. Like when one race fights the same race, that's what he truly benefits on. And like from what we've seen, at least with the Eldar, we really haven't seen any other like groups fighting each other. Or at least like groups with like psychic abilities to the extent of humanity.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
I
yeah.
feel like that would birth Khorne, even to like obviously the little wars were like the teetering, but like genuinely like I kind of agree with Mark now on that one.
Yeah, it just we have a god, and we've seen how a god Slaanesh is birthed. And then I think about the other gods and how they're birthed. And is it really that different what I'm proposing than how Slaanesh operates? Not so much.
Honestly, you're right. I agree wholeheartedly.
I like it.
If do you know if that's true about a species fighting itself? I could buy that for sure, and especially with how warlike and savage humans are. But is that like, do you know that for a fact? Because it sounds like you're not even sure about that.
Listen, I'm quoting you guys, so like you're my source. So listen, I heard it here.
Okay, well then it's obviously true. That's obviously
Yeah, exactly.
yeah,
Lorehammer has never lied. It will never lie. Everything you guys say is true.
And we don't
canon.
donate all the Patreon money to orphans. I know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, listen, nobody wanted those orphans anyways. But
That's why they're orphans. Duh.
yeah, exactly, right?
Checks
Like,
out.
they
Checks
could
out.
get into a good school where they could learn how to be commissars, maybe.
Be useful to society instead of just
Exactly.
the fucking useless things they
Drain.
are.
Oh,
I don't know
I
how
got
we got
some
on an
more,
orphan
bro.
hate train, but we're on it. Choo choo.
Yeah. Listen, these orphans won't know what hit them. Also, Chris, just one thing.
Yeah.
Sex was way more powerful than anything else in humanity. We were killing people for sex way before anything else. I did that. Sex made the Wild West. I mean, that's why we saw so many female politicians over there. They were literally the most wealthy individuals and like were the most well known. That's canon.
Or prostitutes.
A little bit of both.
Who's to say?
What's the difference?
The first female, I think the first female mayor was elected, at least in America, was elected in the, I think Nebraska. Don't quote me on where, but like Midwest. And she was a prostitute, and she used her funds to build an inn, and then basically built up a town with her funds of being a prostitute.
Sure, but I mean, the Wild West is like a far cry from like Bronze Age society. I'm not going to deny that sex is a powerful human incentive, and it depends on like Jordan kind of made a joke about it earlier about like, trading resources for sex could be theoretically a prostitution if you're really stretching it, but I wouldn't even call it that because it's not like professionalized at that point. You're just trading resources. So I would argue things like hunting, like survival based occupations were probably the first professions. And again, it depends on how you define profession and like where you pinpoint like the beginning of what you would call an economy and what you're trading for. But that's a whole other thing. I'm not denying, again, the power of Slaanesh here. I'm just saying that
He's not denying prostitution.
people like animals.
Or that he is a prostitute.
Yeah, exactly.
Or that I'm a prostitute.
Put respect on the prostitute's name. All right, that's
Sure.
all I'm saying.
But
That's all I'm here for.
They're
I'm not-
hardworking individuals working day in, day night on their
But
backs. Okay, for
Excuse
you.
me, they're
And on the streets.
And on their
Excuse me. No,
but I'm not gonna.
excuse me. They are sex workers, not whores.
They are not.
Nobody
whores.
called them whores yet. We weren't there yet. That's not in the script.
Okay. Well, regardless, yeah, I take umbrage with the oldest profession claim. I don't buy it, but
Okay. Well, you know what people did buy? Sex. So
To get bed.
begone thought.
Yeah. And with that, we will banish Jack back into the wild. Thanks,
Jordan, read quotes with funny voices. That is all. Goodbye.
Okay,
Bye.
maybe next time.
Thanks for chatting.
Okay, we'll get another one
If you
on.
pay me
Next
like a
skeleton.
whore, I'll read anything, any way you want.
I got $20. Fuck yeah. Okay.
I will say it's fitting for Slaanesh to be taking over a Khorne episode here. How much they hate each other. Right. Next up.
Skeleton. Hey, welcome to the
Howdy.
show.
Good to be here. Yeah, I enjoyed the episode. I'll say Khorne incredibly one note. He's
See, I agree.
Yeah.
This is my whole issue with him.
yeah.
My whole issue.
I have to really dig down to find some subtlety or variation.
Or like any
I
kind
know.
of nuance or anything. Yeah.
Yeah, I know we covered
What, the
Blood
rivers
Pact.
of blood wasn't doing it for you? The lakes of slaughter?
I mean, it's fun in that regard, but in terms of like a complexity to grasp onto, there isn't much. I think you guys covered Blood Pact, Sons of Sect a bit earlier, where you get a little bit more flavor to them. But going through it, like there's not much in terms of unique strategies. Fun stuff. The most I can really recall is like sometimes they'll like back off in certain situations just to prolong the slaughter. So kind of saving the Blood Angels at Ball just so they could fight them later. But beyond that, they're one note kind of god. So I think thematically they might be one of the weaker gods in terms of like what you can really grasp onto in terms of diving into the lore around them.
Is there something that you wish was tacked on, some aspect or some?
Yeah, I think a furthering of like the Blood Pact theme, explorations of different kind of anger. I know in some regards, like ritual bloodletting does feed Khorne. In terms of Logar, the word bearers doing it. I would like to see those aspects kind of explored a bit more than they have been.
Yeah.
Okay.
One interesting take. So in like Greek mythology, everyone knows that Ares is the god of war, but a lesser known fact is that Athena is kind of his counterpart. She's also a goddess of war and wisdom, and kind of her approach to war is more of a strategic warfare. It's like the higher minded form of combat, where Ares is a lot more of a base human, rage and glory kind of seeking combat. So like maybe including more an Athena aspect to Khorne would be interesting. I like the Eldar god Cain, with all his different. Cain is a very deep god of war compared to Khorne, which I agree.
Yeah, I think more of that aspect in terms of like a retcon potential. I think Khorne has some. We
don't do that here. No retcons.
Same way the Necrons were made much more interesting rather than just zombies. I think Khorne can be, make him into more of a thinker. He doesn't have to be a full-on chess player. Stick him in his checkers role, but give him something to like bite into in terms of some subtlety.
Yeah. I do like that kind of thought of that adding wisdom on, where it almost seems so opposite of what he is. But yeah, no, you got it. We've talked about whenever we do Tau episodes about like in order to defeat your enemy, you must first know them and how you must train your mind first before you train your sword. And kind of the same vibe where to be a good warrior, you have to be a thinker first.
Yeah, and we don't have to go like full samurai with him or anything like that, but maybe more of a harvesting reaper aspect where there's an understanding that that if he keeps on slaughtering, there's going to be no more blood. So good, it's like growing new realms of blood for him to eventually harvest would be cool
He's
in my
a
mind.
A
cattle.
farmer and a warrior, a rancher and a warrior.
Yeah, because that's
That's
what he
actually-
is essentially. Is he sits back and he wants as much blood as possible.
That's not a
blood
bad
farmer.
idea to have even that aspect where like he doesn't completely deplete all the blood in the universe, and he's not on a mission to do so. He wants it to perpetuate so that he can continually have the power that he has. No, I'm like totally with you on your thinking. I'm glad I wasn't the only person thinking that way.
Yeah. Appreciate that.
You guys ever see that meme where it's like a graph, and at one side you got low IQ, on the other side you got high IQ? So low and high IQ, they both like Khorne. And then you got that middle people, that's you two. They're like, Khorne's one-dimensional. Meanwhile, everyone else is like,
We're
"This
the
is fucking right."
midwits. Yeah.
The midwits. But that's fine. We need midwits to make me, the unintelligent, feel smarter. So thank you.
Yeah.
Skeleton, any other thoughts there? Or
I think that about covers it. Again, great podcast. I'll throw this out here. Subscribe to the Patreon. The community is as good as the podcast. Met so many good people there, so many friends. So if joining the Patreon gets you part of that community, be part of it. It's truly awesome.
the Discord is free too to everyone. Everyone is welcome to come hang out on a Discord and chat. And like you said, yeah, I myself have made a lot of good friends. Like even Gerald from Wednesday episodes. Like I met him on the Discord, and then I'm like, hey, I kind of actually like him a lot. So yeah, I love it, man. So cool.
Yep.
All right.
Thanks for having me. You guys have a great night.
You too. Thanks. Bye.
Yeah.
All right, we got time for one more quick one. Let's go with Grim here since you're next down on the row. Yo, Grim, what's good?
How's it going,
Hey.
fellas? How are you tonight?
Good.
Yeah. I'm excited to finish this episode and get to my bloodbath before bedtime.
Oh, goodness. Where's that blood coming from? The chickens? Or should we just leave that blank?
Mark does not care where he gathers the blood.
Mark or Trevor?
Stop it. Stop.
You are scaring Jordan. Stop it. Why did you call us just to do this?
Well, he said Khorne was one-dimensional. I mean, I see it. But then again, being a youth, when I was younger, I got into Warhammer. The biggest thing is the most metal shit. Khorne brought that. That's really what suckered me into fucking Warhammer. It was like the most gruesome metal thing ever.
I mean,
No.
hold on. Don't get me wrong though. I think Khorne aesthetically looks the coolest of all. Like, I think of all the gods that I've seen, he's like the most badass looking.
So
I
I had
don't
gone
know that
downstairs
that's.
and pulled out one of the most metal models. Pewter, nonetheless.
Ooh.
Yeah, I was
Oh,
gonna say, is he
yeah,
actually made out of metal? Yeah.
Yes, yeah,
Better
look,
be.
So this is a 3rd edition Bloodthirster, and honestly, the thing has broken so many times, but that's what suckered me into Warhammer. Was those fuckers.
Yeah, like the
Um,
artwork and stuff of like any demonic realm or demon or whatever usually is just so wild.
Absolutely. And I mean, don't get me wrong. As much as we have issues with how the rooted powers go against the Materium realm, you're not just ever fighting against one. You're fighting against 4 of the Immaterium realm. So with that in mind, like, yeah, it sucks to have to fight against Khorne individually. It sucks to have to fight against Nurgle, Slaanesh, Tzeentch. But to have to fight them as a whole, truly, I don't see the Imperium holding any ground. Like,
Yeah, you can't ever battle something that when you battle it, you just make it more powerful. Like, it's kind of one of those things.
But
Aha,
that
I got
keeps-
your skull. Well, that's what we wanted.
Yes, and that keeps the status quo of the world, because you can have all these other issues, wars going on between all these other races, and demons just, if Imperium's winning, demons or just the runic powers come in and say, "Fuck you," and they take over.
Yeah, very cool. Is Khorne then your favorite of all the gods, or?
Once again, I'm undivided. I
Fair
have no allegiance to one or another, as much as I do love them all. Gork and Mork probably are my true favorite.
Okay. Yeah. Next Wednesday episode, we're doing the Gork and Mork, and it's going to be fun with Brody and Gerald doing voices and stuff. We couldn't quite get Jordan to do a voice this time, but that's the way she goes.
That's all right. All right. Well, thank you, boys. I'm gonna mention one last time. Join the Patreon. It's a great community. Skelly said there's a whole bunch of stuff going on. You guys are fucking fabulous. However, the Patreon or even just the Discord itself, everyone joins in. It's a fucking blast. Anyone who's listening, join it. It's a riot. So,
Yeah, and you're still doing tabletop RPG stuff, and we were talking the other day about definitely launching something. We don't have any official plans, but there's definitely stuff in the works revolving around tabletop simulator, some prize money perhaps, and just a couple different ideas going around. So
yes, sir. So there's some whispers in the warp of what's all going on, but if you're learning or looking to learn how to play PTS, tabletop simulator, Warhammer, whatever edition, we can teach you how to play, just so you can kind of get involved in the community, depending on what aspect of the hobby you come into. We want to get you guys involved. So there's whispers in the warp of some future endeavors, but we'll see how that all goes.
Yeah. Well, cool. Thanks, Scrim, for calling in. See you next one.
See ya.
Adios. All right. And then there were three, Christian and Jordan and Mark. We did another episode, another great job. Packs on the bat all around. Pets. Well, let's do our end notes real quick and let's get out of here. If you want to go buy Khorne Demons and you're not using Merlin's miniatures, what are you doing? Are you trying to insult me? Are you trying to piss me off? Do you want me to come to your house? Go use Merlin's miniatures and use promo
Blood
code
for the
Warhammer.
blood god.
Yeah, I will do that. But definitely go use more promo code Lorehammer or use the link in the description below. If you like homebrew lore, come check out Lorehammer Listen to Lore podcast. I kind of do that every now and again. I like doing it. I just don't have time, but I do it every now and again. Lorehammer Listen to Lore podcast.
And if you want to hear us talk about Star Wars, Jordan and I have another podcast called Star Lores, where we do deep dives into the Star Wars universe. Come check us out over there.
Yeah, and shout out to our Patreon members the last couple of days. We got Isaac, Joe D, and Valium. So yeah, like everyone said, come join the Patreon. Every couple bucks really helps us support the show. These guys like to get paid and whatever. I got a joke before we leave. We can leave it out on a fun little joke. I'm just scrolling up for it. We're getting closer. It's in the chat and it was a killer, but I had to save it for the end. One of you guys tell me a joke.
Can you command F it?
Oh, maybe. Don't worry. The sound editors can edit this part out, so YouTube live people just have to suck it up. Okay, here we go. We found it. You know how Khorne's all big and strong and probably works out like a manly man? How many eggs a day do you think Khorne eats?
I don't know how many.
Depends on how many she bleeds out. All right. Thanks for coming. Adios,
Oh
everyone.
my